Kept you waiting, huh?
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Rookies and Codecs, a Metal Gear podcast. I'm Isaac.
And I am Alex. We're streaming this episode from VR, if you can believe it.
Yeah, we're talking about Metal Gear Solid 2. So it's our fourth Metal Gear in a row. How are you feeling so far? Kind of marathoning all these games for the first time.
I can't believe it, but in a weird way, there are some of the stuff that happens in this game, in particular, kind of made me nostalgic for the MSX games. To a point where I'm like, maybe I will replay those at some point. But my suspicion is like once I get into it, I'll be like, oh yeah, I remember why I didn't really care for these.
Yeah, it seems like the further away we get from them, the more fondly I remember them. But it'll be one of those things like, oh yeah, I remember playing E.T. on the Atari when I was a kid. And then you go back for 5 minutes and you're like, yeah, I remember why I don't play that game anymore.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like this one in Metal Gear Solid has done a really clever job of like making those two games relevant more than I expected.
Yeah, it's crazy all the stuff that ties in from one game to the next, and like each of these games has had a fight with a helicopter, and little stuff like that Kojima just keeps. I don't want to say recycling, but like I said in the last episode, George Lucas's quote, they're like poetry, they rhyme. So,
Exactly.
but it's interesting because I feel like he does that consistently throughout the whole series, at least the ones that I've played.
Yeah. So I'm excited to see like. I mean, that's certainly something that's very interesting about this game, and we'll definitely get to it because I have a lot of comments on how this game is really fresh compared to Metal Gear Solid, but it also like has a ton of similarities without it feeling redundant.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like the fresh setting did a lot of favors for it. The fresh setting, the new character, all that stuff really did a lot to kind of set it apart. Even though a lot of the events are very similar to what we've seen in the past.
Yeah, and speaking of relevancy, it's like we had a question during our last episode about a hypothetical Metal Gear Solid movie, and it was also announced shortly after that there is a new Metal Gear Solid movie in the works. I guess there's kind of been one in the works since 2006, but now it's been more seriously talked about. We have actual directors attached to it this time.
Yep, that actually brings me right to the first part of today's episode. MGN, Metal Gear News.
Yeah.
I've got an article here from Jim Vejvoda from at IGN, saying that Metal Gear Bloodlines filmmakers Zach Lipovsky and Adam B. Stein will direct a live-action feature adaptation of Konami and Hideo Kojima's iconic video game franchise, Metal Gear Solid. According to The Hollywood Reporter, the duo are making the Metal Gear Solid movie for Sony's Columbia Pictures as part of a first-look deal between Sony Pictures and the filmmaker's new production company, Wonderlab. Lipovsky and Stein said in a statement, Metal Gear Solid is nothing short of groundbreaking cinematic masterpiece that forever revolutionized video games. We are thrilled and honored to bring Hideo Kojima's iconic characters and unforgettable world to life. Movie version of Metal Gear Solid has been lingering in development hell since it was first announced back in 2012. And the article goes on to say Metal Gear Solid will be produced by Ari and Avi Arad. The father-son team previously produced live-action movie adaptations of Borderlands and Uncharted, with Avi Arad being the runner of Marvel Studios before Kevin Feige took over in 2008. So definitely, stacked stacked production cast behind this movie. Even though we don't really know anything about it yet, it seems like it's in very capable hands. As long as they don't make the same mistakes they made with Borderlands.
Yeah, yeah, I hope not. Like casting Mel Gibson as Solid Snake, like somebody that's way too old. Uh,
Yeah.
it's funny you misspoke. You said Metal Gear Bloodlines. I think you meant to say Final Destination
Oh, did
Bloodlines,
I?
but it fits
Yeah.
because I mean that the Bloodlines do fit with the Metal Gear Solid theme throughout a lot of the games. But it's I've heard nothing but good things about that movie. It's like the only part I saw was on YouTube was Tony Todd's final scene, which was terrific. But yeah, it sounds like that the directors have a passion for it, and Avi Arad has a very mixed career. Like, I mean, he's had his hands in classics like the Spider-Man trilogy, but he also was involved with Morbius and Madam Web. So,
Oh,
well,
was he?
yeah, yeah. I mean, he's been a producer and executive producer on a lot of movies. So, you know, we'll see. It'll be. I suspect, if I had to guess, I think that they'd probably do Snake Eater's story, if I had to guess, but we'll see.
Well, following like Konami's lead, apparently they think that's a pretty good place to start fans in the series. So, I mean, we'll see how it goes. Personally, I think if you just go straight into the first Metal Gear Solid, that would be amazing. Because I mean, you don't have to fill out a whole world to tell a story in it, like George Lucas with Empire Strikes Back, or not Empire Strikes Back, A New Hope. Just drops you in the middle of a giant conflict. You don't know what the heck's going on, and you're off to the races. I mean,
True.
I feel like it could work, but yeah, that's one of the things. We just don't have enough information to really tell what's going on just yet.
Yeah, but it's interesting to me that we were literally just talking about a hypothetical Metal Gear Solid movie, and it gets like somewhat officially announced like a couple weeks afterwards.
Yeah, it is kind of crazy the timing. We've had new news pretty much every episode since we didn't have any of the first one, but we've had one before Metal Gear Solid or Metal Gear 2, Metal Gear Solid, and now this one. So we picked a good time to do a Metal Gear podcast. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I agree. I think the series has been, in, I think it's been bringing. There's been new people getting into it, and old fans coming back to it. Obviously, because that's kind of the whole theme of this thing that you and I are doing.
Yeah. But yeah, did you have any more thoughts about Metal Gear Solid?
The movie?
The movie?
No, not really. I just hope it's good. I'm not somebody that is particularly picky when it comes to video game adaptations. Like, I don't need it to be shot for shot or, you know, exactly like the games. I'm cool with some liberties. I mean, I love the Paul W.S. Anderson Resident Evil movies, and those are basically like a Elseworld story for the Resident Evil games.
Now, I will say for all the crap that those movies get, and I have flung a fair amount of that crap myself. The first movie was a really fun time, and I feel like it was really interesting setup. But they just in those sequels, they just kind of went overboard with it, and we had like what 2 or 3 movies in a desert.
Yeah, yep.
So I wasn't a huge fan of that.
So I mean, we'll see if they go that direction, and it would be. I mean, who? I want to see what they're going to do with like the fourth wall breaking or whatever. If like somebody turns to the camera and says, hey, remember, it's just a movie, or they tell you to walk out of the theater right now.
Turn the movie off, quick! Get the remote. That would be amazing, and I could totally see them like leaning into it and doing that. But at the same time, I feel like, you know, people making movies today are in it to make money rather than something fun and interesting. So I feel like that's something that they may be too afraid to do in
Right.
a major blockbuster movie like this.
I mean, the only movie that's really done anything like that would be the Deadpool movies. Because I mean, that's
And
been
I
his.
love them for it. I
Yeah.
love them for it.
And those are probably a little bit more fourth wall breaking in the comedic sense than Metal Gear Solid. But I digress. Yeah, I just hope it's good. That's all.
Well, if you don't have any more thoughts on that,
Yeah,
we'll
I mean that's the
go
last of
over
our
into the
news. I mean,
development.
speaking of good, let's go into the development of Metal Gear Solid 2.
All right. So Metal Gear Solid 2 began development in 1999. It was originally going to be titled Metal Gear Solid 3 with the Roman numeral 3 in the title, was used to represent the three tallest skyscrapers in Manhattan where the game was set. In addition, Hideo Kojima implied that several of the themes he intended to be used in Metal Gear Solid 2 were essentially put into movie form by the Wachowskis in their movie The Matrix before the game's release. According to Hideo Kojima in the documentary Metal Gear Saga Volume 1, the original plot of the game revolved around nuclear weapon inspections in Iraq and Iran. In the plot, Solid Snake was supposed to stop a new Metal Gear while it was located on an aircraft carrier in a certain time limit. He was also supposed to defeat Liquid Snake and his group, implying that Liquid had faked his death from Foxdie in the previous game. However, about 6 months into the project, tensions in the Middle East began to arise, so the development team decided that they couldn't make a game with that plot. The tanker in the final version is based on the original plot. Metal Gear Solid 2 was also intended to reference the novel City of Glass, a novel by Paul Auster published in 1985, most notably in the naming of its characters. Raiden's support team originally featured a field commander named Daniel Quinn, simply referred to as the Colonel in game, Maxine, Max, Work, an Asian woman who saves the game data and quotes Shakespeare, and William Doc Wilson, the creator of GW. All of their names were taken from key characters in the book, and all three would have turned out to be AIs. None of these characters appear in the final version. Their roles were absorbed by other characters, namely Colonel Campbell, Rose, and Emma Emmerich. Peter Stillman, however, takes his name from another City of Glass character. Also interesting side bit about Peter Stillman. Um, I think I forgot to include it later on, but the voice actor who plays Peter Stillman in Metal Gear Solid 2 is the same voice actor who played Gray Fox and Decoy Octopus in Metal Gear Solid 1.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I thought that was pretty cool if they brought him back in a new role. Um, a two-player versus mode was also planned, however, it was dropped for unknown reasons. Metal Gear Solid 2 is the first Metal Gear game to contain a note at the beginning that states the events in the story are fictional. The note was presumably added in due to the events of September 11th, 2001. The consistent plot device throughout the game of all the characters either giving lies at least once or otherwise betraying and uh, going to the other side of the conflict, according to Kojima, was based on the film L.A. Confidential. According to the localizer of the game, Agnes Kaku, Konami and Kojima had been insistent that the localized script remain exactly the same as in Japan on a micro level, in a manner comparable to scientific journals and legal documents, meaning she could not remove anything even to keep the flow or reduce repetition. Which I thought that was very interesting that they were so specific. Like every single word has to be translated into all these different languages. Um, and um, there is a whole section here also about the impact of September 11th, 2001
Yeah.
on the development of the game. Um, so because the game finished development before 9/11, but wasn't due to be released yet, several aspects ended up significantly edited to avoid highlighting any similarities to the terror attacks. The most notable changes were a sequence depicting Arsenal Gear's displacement of the Statue of Liberty and crashing through half of Manhattan was removed, as was a short code that was supposed to appear after the credits, consisting of a newscast showing the Statue of Liberty's new resting place on Ellis Island. When Solidus Snake dies, an American flag of New York Stock Exchange, cut by him during the deleted crash scene, was supposed to fall over his body, but the development team removed all of the American flags from the game. Additionally, several pieces of dialogue were cut, such as Liquid Ocelot claiming responsibility for Arsenal Gear ramming into Manhattan, as well as Vamp explicitly stating that Dead Cells planned to use the purified hydrogen bomb to nuke Manhattan outright was independent of Solidus's goal of causing an EMP, and Raiden accusing President Johnson of working for the terrorists. For most of the game's development, Raiden's name was written in katakana, literally as Raiden. After 9/11, they began writing his name in kanji due to the similarities between Raiden and Laden when written in katakana, which I who would have thought about that? Um,
Exactly. But I mean, they really like. I heard about this too. That they really like tried to cover their butts, and I mean, it wasn't just this game that had to do stuff like this. Like there were movies that got delayed and changed, and just
oh
posters
yeah.
like
Well, I remember like the first Spider-Man movie, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie. It had the whole third act was going to be like a big battle in the like around the Twin Towers, but got cut and it got changed to like this scene with the people of New York uniting and coming together to fight the Green Goblin off. So I mean, I can only imagine, which I was like 5 months old during the 9/11 attack, so I don't know anything about it firsthand,
yeah,
but I can
I
only
was in the
imagine
third grade,
how.
so I have pretty good memory of it.
Yeah. Um, but to a lesser extent, some artwork for the game was also altered as a result of 9/11. A notable example of this was one of the artworks that depicted Solid Snake posing near the Manhattan skyline. Originally, the skyline showed the World Trade Center, although this was edited out of the final versions of the artwork, including the that was included in the art of Metal Gear Solid 2. The original can be found on the October 2001 issue of Electronic Gaming Monthly, as it had been commissioned by Yoji Shinkawa specifically for the magazine. So that's all I have before I get into some excerpts from Hideo Kojima's development diary um, while he was making Metal Gear Solid 2. So, any thoughts on that so far?
Well, I'll say this, and I guess we'll probably get a little bit more into it once we get near the end of the story, because I feel like that's where most of the cuts happen. Um, it's like it the ending of the game feels like a dream to begin with, so it kind of fits having some stuff feel like it's missing, because like all of a sudden you're in a city, like you don't see Arsenal Gear crash or anything like that. Um, but it's like, I mean, there's a statue of George Washington, so it's clearly in America. But I think it was probably smart to make as many changes as possible without completely just deciding to shut the game down altogether. So in an odd way, I think that the cuts made the game feel even more dreamlike, especially during the last couple of hours.
Yeah, that's what once you get into like you know, whenever Raiden wakes up butt naked until the end, I honestly had a hard time wrapping my mind around all the stuff that the game was throwing at me, like all at once. The first playthrough, it wasn't until the second playthrough that I started kind of being able to parse it. What was happening, what they were all talking about, and it's not that it was incredibly complex. It's just so much information that they're just bombing you with all at once. Um, yeah, we'll definitely get into that as we go through. Um,
But tell me
I do.
about tell me about these developer notes that you said that you have from Kojima.
Yeah, so I have here it's Metal Gear Solid 2, The Making. It's Kojima's development diary, and it was published in 2002. Um, so I've got a fan translation. One of us will drop it into the chat if you're watching live, or we'll have it in the description of the video version of this. But I just cherry picked out a few that I thought were interesting and to kind of give a little bit of context to the man that kind of masterminded this whole thing. So I'll just jump straight in here. First up, October 7th, 1998. And as we're going through, Alex, if you want to make any comments or anything, just stop me because I'm going to kind of try to just rapid fire these and get through them here.
Sure.
Um, October 7th, 1998. I went to see Saving Private Ryan with Matsubana Nishimura and Nakamura. I'm going to butcher all of these names, I promise. We had our advance tickets ready and headed to Shibuya Cine Tower. But wow, it was already standing room only. Is it that popular? And then I heard an announcement. Today, tickets are 1,000 yen. Oh, right. It was movie day. I didn't have the stamina to stand for a 3-hour movie, so I looked up, and just then the sign for a theater across the street caught my eye. Austin Powers. We quickly crossed the lightly raining street and switched to Austin Powers. Man, it was hilarious. But I wonder if this kind of humor is only understandable to people in their 30s and up. When developing Metal Gear Solid 2, I might need to rewatch 007. Um, which that's kind of a theme throughout his diary. He mentions a lot of things like, I wonder if only people in their 30s and up get this. I wonder if it's a generational thing. That's something that he kind of mentions a couple of times too. So we have October 31st, 1998 at 7 o'clock p.m. Vampires: The Last Battle finally started. The film opened with an interview with John Carpenter. He looked healthier than before, and the interview was quite interesting. Vampires marked Carpenter's comeback. It was well done. The theme was excellent. The story was perfect for Carpenter. After the movie, Muraoka-san and I had dinner at Harajuka. While drinking beer, I talked about the planning retreat and explained the outline of MGS2. Come to think of it, the first person I discussed the plot and concept of the previous game with was also Maru Maruaoka-san. I'm sorry for that name. I know that's horrible. I remember it was at the tea shop in Sanamiya Station. After that, we drank at a bar in Ebisu until midnight. November 11th, 1998. Um, we were shown into a small private room at Sony Computer Entertainment. There we watched 5 different demos on 5 stacked prototype PS2 units, graphic boards. It was truly impressive. If the work is done right, achieving real-time visuals on par with pre-rendered cinematics is very feasible. The hardware is ideal for cinematic-style games, but MGS is different. Visually, we'll likely still be at a disadvantage. We moved to another room for a technical breakdown of the specs. It's not just a typical game console. It's a beast of high-end hardware. What used to be manually crafted data is now being processed through calculations. Effects like explosions, wind, and smoke won't be handled by a director's craftsmanship anymore. They'll be generated in real time using physics-based middleware. In real time, 3D elements like fire and water are no longer just static data. They're represented through dynamic simulations driven by real-time calculations. This changes the way we approach development significantly. Things like hair movement, which animators used to create by hand, will now be handled through physics simulations. While this brings us closer to realism, it may also lead to a loss of the artistic individuality that animators used to inject into the games. We took one of the graphics hardware sets back to the office. I'll never forget the complex conversations I had with this person. I'm not even attempting this name during the taxi ride from Akasaka to Ebisu. After returning to Ebisu, I gathered the core team for a briefing. I reaffirmed my decision for MGS2. We'll focus on having a massive number of enemies, about 100 soldiers, each around 1,000 polygons, on screen, even if it means sticking to a low poly models. Which I want to pause right there because I think that entry really shows that, Kojima always saw this as high art. Um, he knew what he was making. He knew that it was mostly, just um, military simulations, but he also obviously considered the art of game making to be, up there. And he said, he called it what a beast of high-end hardware, and said that even then they're going to be at a disadvantage for, what they're aiming to do. So I just thought it was really interesting that, it shows that he always had higher aspirations than what the technology could give him
Oh, absolutely. I
while he
mean,
was working on these games.
yeah. Like, I mean, we kind of said during Metal Gear Solid that, okay, this feels like the game he really wanted to make with the first two games. Um, and, the technical jump between the PS1 and the PS2 it's unbelievable. And it's like it's even more on display like once you like playing Metal Gear Solid and Metal Gear Solid 2 back to back. It's like the hair and rain physics and the sound difference and the facial animations. Like, I mean, it's night and day, man.
Yeah. Um, and this next one kind of shows shows that a little bit more. So I've got November 24th, 1998. Today's menu at Takabe's secret lab: shadows influenced by point lights. And he doesn't explicitly explain it, but I believe Takabe's secret lab was like, their development office, whatever you want to call it. So he would always say, today's menu on Takabe's secret lab, and then talk about what they worked on the technical side of things. So the shadows stretch out and change shape with the movement of the light, curving around on top of a real round oil drum and bending when they hit the wall. It's exactly the shadow processing I've been dreaming of. We've even got multiple shadows appearing from different light sources. We've managed to get it working, but lately nothing has really surprised me. It feels like something's missing. If we keep adding this and that, there's a risk of weakening the visual impact. Focusing too much on shadows and lighting could reduce the number of soldiers on screen. A more cinematic approach with fewer, more detailed polygons might be easier to understand and more likely to succeed. I'm starting to doubt the direction again. However, if we aim for movie-like CG, we won't be able to create the experience or sense of immersion I want. In the end, it's about content. No matter what anyone says, I'm going to keep going down this path. I found a nonfiction book called The Nazi Saboteurs of the Atomic Bomb. Flipping through it, the codename Mikkel caught my eye. I'm not sure what language it's from, but it seems to mean fox. It was a codename given to operatives involved in special operations against the Nazis. I want the codenames this time for the protagonists and Black Cell. No, it's not Dead Cell yet. It's Black Cell at this point. To be based on weapon names like Raiden and Fat Man. I want to convey the nuance that they are being treated as tools of war rather than as people. And I think that's interesting because I don't know if this is directly related, but it could be that he got the name Fox for the Fox unit in Metal Gear Solid 3 from this book all the way back in 1998. Um, Next, I've got February 15th, 2001. Maybe it's the after effects of last night's drinking party, but my stomach isn't feeling well. Lately, my condition the day after drinking has been the worst. There's definitely something wrong with my internal organs. I attached a hard drive to the test unit and installed all the maps for MGS2. It takes about 20 minutes, but it's smooth. It's so fast that it might affect the game design. Players won't even have time to take a break. The MGS2 shown at the Toy Fair in New York is being covered on IGN. Raiden, Fortune, and Solidus are in silhouette as promised. Just as planned. They think Raiden is the ninja. Excellent. Um,
I feel like that's something I wanted to talk about. You kind of mentioned like one of the trailers. The trailers for this game were extremely misleading, um, to the point where they made you straight up think you were playing Solid Snake for the entire game. Like there are some of the early trailers that show Snake as the point of view character during the Raiden parts, uh, which is interesting to say the least. I don't know how you feel about that, but to me, I think if you're going to try to keep the second character a secret, or at least try not to show that there's going to be the second character that you play throughout most of the game, then just show footage from the first 2 or 3 hours from the game, or show the moments where Raiden and Snake are together. I think so. I'm not really in favor of lying to the audience, but I think misleading them in a different way could have gone over a lot better.
I still think that the way they did it with Metal Gear Solid 2 is better than what happened with Kingdom Hearts 2. Because you've not played Kingdom Hearts, is that right?
I've played a little bit of the first one. I'm still kind of working my way through the series.
Okay. Um, well, just as a warning, whenever you start Metal or Kingdom Hearts 2, rather, you're just dropped in as a totally new character. No idea who he is, where he's from, nothing. And that's the first 2, 3 hours of the game. And it ties into the spin-off game that came out on the Game Boy Advance the year prior.
Right.
But most of the audience jumping into Kingdom Hearts 2 just played Kingdom Hearts 1. And they had no idea who this guy was. And it's not an insignificant time that you're playing as Roxas, and you just are like, all right, where's Sora? Just, I'm here for Sora. Give me Sora. And so I can imagine that was kind of a similar reaction after you've already had, like, what, an hour and a half with Solid Snake, and then you're jerked away from Solid Snake, and, you're given Raiden. You're like, okay, give me him back, and you never get him back. So I can definitely see why audience perception kind of turned on Metal Gear Solid 2 at the time for that.
Yeah, and again, I
Um,
think it would have been smarter to just show game footage from the first 2 hours, instead of like literally showing game footage that you would never actually play as Snake, because it is in a way it's actually in some ways illegal, because it's
it's false
misleading.
advertising,
It is
right?
false advertising.
Yeah. So next I've got an entry from February 21st, 2001. And most of these I've just taken part of the entries, but I'm going to read you the entire entry from the day of February 21st, 2001. Uh, in the morning, I noticed that my right foot had stepped in poop at the railroad crossing. Was it dog poop? This isn't a slum, so it couldn't have been human feces left on the street. Could it have happened last night? No, that's unlikely since I took a taxi. Maybe I stepped on a landmine on what they called Poop Street. I haven't stepped in poop for 10 years. I'm quite disheartened. My spirits are low. When I was a child before sports day, my mother would say, "Step in horse poop. It'll make you run faster." Of course, there wasn't any horse poop around, so it had to be dog poop. I remember choosing dry ones to step on. Back then, there was often poop left out in the open. it would lose its color and turn white, like barium poop. And that is the entire entry for February 21st, 2001. So that just, I guess, ruined his day at the start, and he never recovered.
Interesting.
um, all right, next is March 1st, 2001. Today is the release of Zone of Enders. It's also the day that Metal Gear Solid 2 demo is unveiled. Around noon, we received a report from the reconnaissance team in Shinguka. It seems to be selling like crazy. That's a relief. We got a message from overseas. Apparently, Mark Hamill actually showed up to the audition. His performance was, as expected, exceptional. I want to listen to the audition tape before making a final decision. I recorded and edited the in-game cinematics from the previous game. We matched the visuals to the dialogue recorded by the staff, but the footage is low poly. Even though it's just a 3-year-old game, it's disheartening and doesn't look good. Um, so of note, Mark Hamill was not cast to play any role in Metal Gear Solid 2, and that kind of makes me sad. I really wonder what role he was auditioning for.
I feel like Fat Man would be the obvious one because
Fat Man or
yeah, because he's very eccentric and loud.
yeah, that seems to be the what Mark Hamill kind of goes for. Um, my first thought was Solidus. If you get like more of a reserved um, performance from him, um, that would have been interesting to see. Mark Hamill. He always does good in anything he's in,
Oh yeah,
but
he's
it's
an
interesting
incredible
that he's
voice
kind of
actor.
like. It's really interesting that he's kind of like, wow, he actually showed up and it was amazing, and then he decided just not to even move forward with him. So, um, and next we have September 11th, 2001. Maybe it's best not to reveal Raiden after all. We've had people play the game for a few days now, and the surprise when it shifts from Snake to Raiden seems strong. It would probably be wise to use this as an explosive reveal. When it's released in America, we'll use CM and promotions to expose Raiden. Everyone will be shocked. This isn't a TV series. Sequels need the kind of surprises that defy users' expectations. Kyle's opening was integrated into the game, just in the nick of time. At night, an incident occurred. It took many lives and shattered our dreams. Um, so apparently, it was late in the process when they decided that, yeah, we're just not going to show Raiden in anything. Um, so it was, let's see. Yeah, I believe it was November 29th when the game released, and it's September 11th that he's making this call not to reveal Raiden. So it's very late in the game when he's like, yeah, just don't show it at all. October 19th, 2001. Today, production is set to conclude. With the U.S. terrorist attacks and the anthrax incidents, it's not a time for unrestrained celebration, but it is a milestone nonetheless. What will become of this world from now on? There's still ongoing anxiety, but this state of constant busyness will finally come to an end after 3 years. I'd like to take it easy for a while. However, even though the master's finished, there are still press events, interviews, release preparations, and promotions to handle until December. I can't let my guard down. This time I am truly exhausted. And I told you he spent, took many visits to the doctors, said that his health was failing him throughout the development cycle. I've got an entry from November 27th, 2001 here that says, in the afternoon I had a consultation with my doctor. It can't be helped, but given the history, I already feel like the boy who cried wolf. So it seems they aren't taking me very seriously. There's also what happened last time. Maybe it really is just stress again. As we went over the results of my full body checkup from the end of July, the doctor suggested that the painful area in my back might indicate an issue with my pancreas. For the stomach pain, I was given a week's supply of Gaster and Celbix. They took a blood sample to send for testing. The results should be ready by Monday. I gave the doctor a copy of the MGS2 software. If the back pain is due to the pancreas, I won't be able to drink alcohol, but the pancreas is not something I'm very familiar with. I'm vague about what kind of organ it is. Still, since it has organ in its name, it must be important. In any case, I can't feel at ease until we find the cause. However, even after taking the prescribed medication, the stomach pain doesn't subside. It, sta- it seems to start hurting when my stomach is empty. If that's the case, this medication should suppress stomach acid and be effective. But in any case, it hurts. I can't concentrate. I bought Yuichi Shimpo's essay interview book at noon. I signed greeting cards to be included in the limited edition copies sent to Carpenter, Brian Singer, Stephen Norrington. Somehow this makes me feel happy. I thought about adding a comment, but I decided against it because my English is a bit shaky. So clearly, this, paying your doctor in Metal Gear 2 game is is interesting, but I guess apparently he put him through the paces. And I looked back to see what he was referencing to at the end of July. Um, but from about March onward, he just does not keep a journal at all until I believe around September is when he picks it back up. I guess just because the end of the development got uh, so crazy for him. Um, but November 29th, 2001, today is finally the domestic release day of Metal Gear Solid 2. Despite the cold, it seems people are already lining up at the major stores. Much appreciated. Most of the staff have gone out to check on the sales, so the office is very quiet, almost like a holiday, though not quite. I've been taking the medicine the doctor gave me, but there's no sign of improvement. If anything, the pain is getting worse. The area around my navel is particularly painful. It seems like it could be the stomach or the duodenum. No idea what that is. And finally, December 28th, 2001. Today is my last day in the office for 2001. Everyone on the Metal Gear Solid 2 team is on their post-release break, except for Takabe-kun. I plan to create the proposal for the next project before the year ended, but since yesterday I've been reviewing the developer diary for the making of book and couldn't get to it. I went through it all, cutting out personal names, store names, and sensitive parts. It's now about half its original length, but as I read through it, even I find it interesting. Just a moment ago, a serviceman from the USS Kitty Hawk and a foreign news anchor who speaks Japanese came to the Konami Japan reception. They called yesterday. I signed their MGS2 copies, and in exchange, they gave me a USS Kitty Hawk cap. They had apparently been to Afghanistan until recently, and it seems they will set sail again after the new year. They haven't played MGS yet. The year of the snake is almost over. Somehow, it doesn't feel very satisfying. My health still hasn't recovered. And that is the final entry in the developer diary. So I know it was kind of a lot, but what did you think about uh, kind of getting a peek inside of his brain while making this game?
Yeah, I had no idea that he was having health problems during this. I wonder if it had to do with just the. I mean, it sounded like some of this stuff was happening before the 9/11 attacks, but I'm sure that didn't help with the stress of having to change a lot of the game after that. So close to release time. Uh, but yeah, I mean, I'm glad he got better because I mean he's still around, so clearly he improved.
Either that or he's still nursing those stomach aches, which 25 years later, I would hate to see that.
Yeah, I mean, so I mean, I think it also kind of like lends credence to some of the stuff that I read about um, him wanting this to be the last Metal Gear Solid he worked on, or at least directed. Um, and something that was loud and clear during the documentary that I watched was that this was a very collaborative effort. There was a requirement that everybody that worked on the development staff would have to um, give an idea to write an idea in their journal for the game. And one of the big ones that got suggested was the bomb disposal thing mechanic that shows up in the game, where you freeze a bomb using this sort of spray. So as I, there's so I think that Kojima was kind of trying to prep his staff for a potential to take the Metal Gear Solid series in a direction without him, but obviously that didn't happen.
Yeah, which that's kind of interesting, considering where he is now. Um, I forget where or when this was. I believe it was, in the press junket for Death Stranding 2. He said that he's got a notebook full of ideas for whenever he passes away, so that the studio can continue on making his games after he's, dead and gone for years and years to come. So it seems like he's almost gone the opposite direction in the years since then.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like it's interesting that that was going on behind the scenes because a lot of this game's themes are about passing on ideas, traditions, and beliefs. Uh, and so it's cool that that he had that sort of environment because a lot of times with creative types or auteur types, it's kind of my way or the highway. So at least he was
Yeah.
open to suggestions, and I think that the game is better for it. And uh, it's like I've looked briefly at to see who was working on some of the games that some of the spin-offs like Acid, Portable Ops, and even Survive have members involved with those games that worked with Kojima on previous Metal Gear Solid games. So it's not like there isn't some sort of, I guess, lineage, for lack of better words.
Yeah. That's what it's just not got the Kojima name on the box, so people don't buy into those as much as they do the ones that he was directly involved with, I feel like.
Right. He
Um,
he is kind of like the only video game director I can think of where he's like, there are movie directors like, there's John Carpenter's The Thing, John Carpenter's Halloween, or Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. Like, there's a handful of movie directors that always have their name with the title, but I think Hideo Kojima is really the only video game director where his name will be above whatever game he's working on.
yeah, and I think that's got more to do with his um, passion for filmmaking than anything, because that's one thing that he keeps going back to and trying to, almost like he's trying to recreate in his games, is that cinematic feel. Because even as far back as the first Metal Gear Solid, you've got a character being introduced for the first time. You've got the character's name and the voice actor that portrays the character there on screen. Um, it's probably the first video game that, at least that I know of, that does kind of that, splash screen type thing that you see recreated with like Borderlands and games like that. Um, I think it's a really interesting thing to kind of like, whenever you dive into like what kind of inspirations film had on Kojima. Um, it's really interesting to kind of dive down that rabbit hole and see where all it branches out at.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally agree. It's he's an interesting guy. That's for sure. It's like there aren't many directors or auteurs that would talk about stepping in poop in one of their production diaries.
I'm surprised that one made it to the final cut. I'll be honest. It must have had a real impact on him
Well, I
that
mean,
day.
now it just totally dawned on me. There is a part in Metal Gear Solid 2 where Raiden has a chance to slip in poop, so maybe that's where that came from. Like when you're on,
Honest,
yeah, like when you're on top of the decks and
yeah,
there's the birds.
I didn't even put that together. But yeah, maybe I should go through line by line and just read every entry and then play the game again. I might have missed something.
um, but another thing that surprised me that I'm reading here, and this is like a small thing, is the platforms it was released on. I thought that this was a PS2 exclusive. I didn't know that this was also released on the original Xbox.
Oh, I didn't realize that either.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I must have skipped over that. see.
Well, I mean, so it was a PlayStation exclusive for about a year, and then it released on Xbox, the Substance version, on November 5th, 2002.
Oh, okay. So it was the re-release.
But
That's interesting because whenever you read about Metal Gear Solid 2, it's always talked about as, the PlayStation 2 game.
right,
I don't even think I've ever seen this box art with the Xbox logo up top.
but apparently it exists. So I mean, yes, I
I heard
always,
it 9.99 at GameStop.
yeah. So I mean, it's not even that rare. I kind of like when I was looking at that while you were talking, I was like, oh, this must be like a rare version of it, and I was like, nope, it's about the same as a PS2 copy will run you.
Yeah, that's actually kind of cool. I didn't know that. Um,
But I think, I mean, do you have any other notes on development, or should we go into story?
yeah, let's head on into the story.
A dud!
Oh boy.
So we'll begin with the tanker section. So around mid 2007, the anti Metal Gear organization Philanthropy received intelligence that a new type of Metal Gear, codenamed Ray, was to be transported through the New York harbor aboard a disguised oil tanker, the USS Discovery. The Metal Gear had been developed by the Marines and was designed as an amphibious anti-Metal Gear unit. Aside from investigating Ray, another reason they took the mission was so that they could get more intel on a group known as the Patriots, which they stumbled upon during investigations into another Metal Gear variant developed by the U.S. Navy. During its scheduled voyage along the Hudson River, the stealth camouflaged Solid Snake boarded the Discovery by bungee jumping from the George Washington Bridge. And what an entrance. I mean,
I
he
mean,
must
that,
have had a lot of faith in that bungee cord.
yeah, yeah. I mean, the shot of him like coming out of camouflage and like this electricity around him, I'm like, that's straight out of Terminator.
Oh, it's iconic, especially like whenever he makes the impact on the deck and the electricity goes out. Um, uh, and that's not the first, Terminator inspiration that we've seen. What was the first Metal Gear game? The box art was
Kyle Reese,
no,
yeah.
Kyle Reese, yeah. Um, so the stealth camo was damaged during the landing impact, forcing Snake to take cover on the ship's deck. Snake's objective was to take photographs of the new Metal Gear and verify its existence, which Philanthropy would then expose to the public. Otacon told him that they would rendezvous at the Verrazano Bridge. However, before they could get far, Snake witnessed the hostile takeover of the tanker by Russian mercenaries. Taking the Marines by complete surprise, the mercenaries silently killed all personnel on board the ship's deck, with Snake deducing that they had to be there for Metal Gear Ray as well. Snake photographed their leader and relayed the image to Otacon for identification. Snake went into the ship where he found the game's first boss, the returning Vulcan Raven. what did you think about seeing the shadow of Vulcan Raven facing you whenever you went into the ship?
Vulcan Raven. I must be drawing a blank on that. I don't remember that at all. I remember fighting Olga. When do you fight Vulcan Raven?
So you don't actually fight him. You go in and there's a shadow being cast against the wall
Oh,
of Vulcan Raven's
oh,
silhouette.
yeah, with the toy. Okay, all right,
Yeah.
yes, okay, yeah. That was
That's what
weird.
when I played it for the first time, I was like, "What the heck?" And actually, whenever I played it this time, I went over and actually shot him, and he starts shooting his little minigun, and he like starts making this like hurt sound that Vulcan Raven makes, and he'll just keep going like that forever.
Interesting. I didn't even think to
Um,
shoot him.
well, he's an enemy. You've got to take him down.
Uh,
Um, so then Snake heads up to the bridge where he found information on the ship's heading. Otacon realized that they were heading over 500 miles past the Bermudas and deduced that this meant that Ray was ready for solo testing and already combat worthy. Before Snake could go down to the cargo hold to identify Ray, he heard a crash and went over to investigate. There, Snake encountered the leader's daughter, Olga Gorlukovich, who has refused to leave the tanker despite being pregnant. And now we have the first official boss. So, what did you think about Olga facing her down at the beginning?
This is an interesting boss fight because it's kind of like a cover shooter, and so you're basically trading shots with her, and you can't run over and punch her or do anything like that. And you're trying to also take cover when she shoots at you, but there's multiple things that's kind of in your way. Like there's a tarp that's sort of attached to a couple boxes that she takes cover behind, and you have to like shoot that out of the way, and then there's a light that will like blind you so you can't aim at her, so you got to shoot that out. So I think that this is a really cool way to show off, okay, this game is even more advanced than the first game, the quote unquote first game, because it's like you can now shoot even more stuff, interact with even more things in the environment.
Yeah, honestly, that's like the whole draw to it for me was kind of tutorializing like, all right, this is what's new here. This is what you can do. You don't have to kill the bosses. You can trank them, take them down that way non-lethally. You can shoot stuff to make it easier for you. That's what the first thing I did whenever I got into the boss fight this time was before she even started shooting at me, I shot the light out because I'd remembered that giving me a hard time the first go around once it's actually aimed down at you. Um, yeah, it's really smart boss design um, because you know that's what any good first level does. First level of Mario shows you, you gotta jump over the mushrooms, give you the building blocks to be successful later on. And I feel like that the Olga fight really does that in a way that it doesn't do it in your face. It's like here's all the tools that you need to succeed, but it doesn't stop you and give you a big block of text telling you about, if you shoot the light out, then you can, you know, reduce, that obstacle. Or if you shoot the tie on the tarp, then it will fly away in the wind. Um, so kind of the organic teaching of the fight that I
Right.
really appreciate.
Yeah, and you brought up something interesting. Like it does kind of show like, hey, you can use non-lethal for the rest of the game if you want to, because the gun that Snake has, it's a trank gun, so he can't do lethal damage anyway until he gets a gun from her after defeating her. But it kind of sets up like, hey, you can defeat all of the bosses in this game without actually killing them.
Yeah, and all the bosses have 2 health bars. So I mean, if you wanted to, you could take them down with lethal means until they're almost dead, and then take them down from the start all the way down with the trank stuff too, if you really wanted to. Um, yeah, I think that's something that I really appreciate too. That on my second playthrough, I attempted to do a no-kill run and ended up with like I think 1 kill in the whole run. And this time I didn't. Once I got into the core of Shell One, I said, "Yep, forget this. I'm just gonna kill this time. It'll be fine." Um, yeah. So after the Olga fight, um, we successfully tranquilized her in combat. Shortly after, a U.S. Army Cypher UAV took Snake by surprise and photographed him. Otacon then reported that he had discovered the identity of the mercenary leader, Sergei Gorlukovich. Otacon also told Snake that the reason that he knew about the existence of Metal Gear Ray was from a tip from Emma Emmerich, his stepsister. Snake made it down to the hold and engaged in a gunfight with Gorlukovich soldiers along the way. After Snake arrived to the hold, where Marine Commandant Scott Dolph was giving his speech to the Marines, Otacon revealed that someone was monitoring their transmission. Because of this, Otacon arranged for an alternative method of sending the required photos of Ray back to him using a small computer terminal in the main hold where Ray was being held. Um, Now, during that whole thing, what did you think about having to sneak around an entire militia all at once?
I mean, it's fun and ridiculous, but it was a fun way to and this game does this really well, and I think the previous one also did it really well, where it breaks up the gameplay by having you do different stuff, as opposed to just sneaking around and shooting people. Like this is a good way to break up the gameplay. And then I also really like that Otacon has like a 2D sprite version of himself once you have to like email him the pictures.
Yeah. And also, I'm sure you weren't paying this close of attention, but I was just trying to pick up any little Easter egg that I could. So whenever you boot up the terminal for the first time as Snake, there's actually one of the lines at the very end that references something about police knots. I can't remember. It's one of the characters' names from Police Knots, but it's like his name slash Police Knots dot ex or something like that. Whenever it's showing you the lines of code as it boots up. So I thought it's funny that he goes the extra mile and puts in these little callbacks to all of his previous games.
Yeah, he there's a part later in the game where there's straight up a poster on the wall. That one was more obvious to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's littered all over the game. So it's if you've got your eyes open, know what you're looking for, you can find them just about everywhere.
Speaking of
Um,
posters, there's also like all throughout this game, if you open up lockers, there's also attractive women in bikinis in these lockers. Um, so that's something to look out for.
yeah, there's some way. I can't remember how to do it, but I got the trophy the last time I played the game for giving one of them a smooch while you're in the locker with the
What?
poster. I don't know. I think I was like trying to lean somehow to see a guard or something, but I accidentally leaned into the poster, and there's a little like smooch sound,
Oh,
and Otacon came
jeez.
over the radio and is like, "Raiden, what are you doing?" and I got a trophy for it. So you know,
That's hilarious.
um, so afterwards, Snake took the photos of Ray and transferred to Otacon. As the Marine Commandant finished his speech, to Snake's shock, Revolver Ocelot appeared, who revealed himself to be working with Sergei Gerlukovich, with the latter holding Dolph at gunpoint. Sergei explained that he planned to sell Ray to Russia in order to revive Russia to its former glory, but Ocelot revealed that he had different plans for Ray, and Sergei assumed that he was still taking orders from Solidus Snake. But Ocelot revealed his true allegiance with the Patriots. Dolph, upon learning this, was shocked that the Patriots apparently were involved with Ray, calling them the Lalilulelo, which
Yes.
is the most amazing thing. Um, with Snake looking on, Ocelot betrayed Sergei and shot him, along with Dolph and four Gurlukovich members who attempted to avenge their fallen leader. Ocelot then blew up the tanker using the planted Simtex, but not before hijacking the new Metal Gear unit. Ocelot's right arm began to spasm. In that moment, he started to talk like Liquid Snake, taunting his brother. It's revealed that Ocelot received a new arm after the Shadow Moses incident from the body of Liquid Snake, which caused a change in Revolver Ocelot's demeanor and behavior, with Liquid somehow possessing him. Liquid told Snake that he was drowning in time, talking about the accelerated aging he was experiencing from Foxdie, and that Liquid avoided this fate by living on through the transplanted arm. Which, by the way, didn't Ocelot pick up his arm after Gray Fox chopped it off in the last game? Why not
Um.
just stitch that one back on rather than go
Well,
to your dead best friend and take his arm?
It's like when I saw that he had his arm back, I was like, oh, he's got like a robotic arm or something. Like that's what I expected because that wouldn't be that far fetched in this universe, but something even more ridiculous. And I am kind of conflicted about this plot point. Personally, I think Liquid should have stayed dead. Um, but I mean, it's freaking crazy, man. Like I don't know how to feel about it. I guess it kind of depends on how and if they pay this off in the later games. Um, but my immediate thought right now is I'm still on board, but I still think that Liquid should have stayed dead. I think that Ocelot should have just gotten a robot arm or something. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's, I thought it was crazy then. I think it's crazy now. Um, Ocelot, like I've told you, is one of my favorite characters in the series.
Oh, and he's great in this too.
So, well, yeah, but having him, being like mind controlled by Liquid is like, he was good enough on his own. He didn't need to be part of Liquid to be a good character. So I think this is kind of a weird turn to take him in, but I mean, like you, I'm still on the crazy train. I'm just ready to see where it's going.
Yeah, and I got the impression that this arm transplant, like he obviously wasn't expecting Liquid's consciousness to still be in the arm. I think probably what happened was, they recovered Liquid's body and they're like, "Hey, we can this arm's still good, so we can, replace yours with it." And he's probably like, "Sure, whatever." I don't get the impression that this is uh, a partnership that he necessarily wants. Because
he seems to be fighting it
right.
whenever he takes control the first time.
Yeah,
But
so it's bizarre. So that's how I feel about it.
yeah, and there's actually, believe it or not, there's more Liquid Ocelot arm talk that we need to get into later on. Um, but so for now, under Liquid's control, Ocelot escapes in Ray, tearing apart the sinking tanker in the process with its hydro cannon. The tanker's sinking results in the deaths of more than half of the soldiers on board, as well as the apparent death of Solid Snake. Ray's theft had actually been orchestrated by the Patriots, and philanthropy was later framed for causing the incident, being labeled as eco-terrorists. It was largely thanks to this cover story that Fortune and Vamp of Dead Cell and Olga Gorlukovich would later want revenge against Solid Snake. Although philanthropy was ultimately discredited as a result of the incident, they nonetheless succeeded in convincing at least one website about the development of Ray. Manipulated by the Patriots, the media reported that Solid Snake had led the terrorist takeover of the oil tanker. Fearing an environmental disaster, the Navy had dispatched the Marines to defuse the threat, but Snake had ended up sinking the tanker and killing everyone involved, including himself. The major cleanup that would require gave the Patriots the perfect cover for the construction of the Big Shell. So that kind of leads us into the Big Shell part of the story. So overall, what did you think about the tanker part of the game? I mean,
It's an incredible opening. I think that this is one of the best openings of like this is a really good hook. I think. I mean, I was really excited to see what was going to happen next, and I mean that I knew that we were going to be transitioning to a different character, so I wasn't influenced by like, wait, why aren't we going back to Snake? So I feel like this opening is really exciting and sets up a lot of plot points, questions, and the reveal of Ray is also a lot of fun as well.
oh yeah, I mean it's almost like a kaiju moment
It sounds like a
with it.
kaiju too.
Yeah, I mean jumping up and like leaping into the water, swimming away. I mean, it's just awesome. Awesome is the only word I have for it, really. But I mean, I'll be honest with you that like the tight focus of the tanker is honestly like what draws me to the Metal Gear Solid series because like I've played other stealth action games like the newer Hitman games. I've played them quite a bit. I've never actually beaten them because they're so open, so many possibilities, so many variables. I feel like the tight focus and the um, small corridors and rooms of like Metal Gear Solid is a lot of the cool stuff to me because you got the shots like li- with you leaning up against a wall and peering down the hallway to watch the guard as he turns around and pop a trank dart in the back of his head, and just moments like that make you feel cool in a way that a lot of more open games they don't really have the opportunity for those scripted moments like that. Um, and there's a whole argument to be made about emergent gameplay and stuff like that. But for my money, this is where it's at.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. But I mean, pretty quickly we get thrust into a completely new character, and it sets up just in this opening of this um, the next 12 to 14 hours of gameplay sets up a lot of mysteries too.
12 to 14. I only had 9 hours on my counter.
Well, okay, so I mean, it took the total game time for me. I think was 14 and a half hours. So I guess it'd be about 12 for Raiden's playthrough for your first time. Um, that so
Well, let's get into the big shell. So, on April 29th, 2009, 2 years after the tanker incident, a terrorist group calling themselves the Sons of Liberty seized control of the Big Shell during a routine inspection tour. The group consisted of former Special Forces Unit Dead Cell and Russian private army members, who were said to be led by Solid Snake himself. The terrorists took nearly 30 people hostage, one of whom was the 44th U.S. President James Johnson, who had been on an inspection tour of the facility at the time. The Sons of Liberty's demands were $30 billion, and they claimed that if their demands were not met, they would destroy the Big Shell. Not only would this ignite the crude oil in the Manhattan Harbor, but it also could burn the chlorides used during the cleanup, creating high levels of dioxins that would wipe out the bay's ecosystem and become the worst environmental disaster in history. And let me just tell you, from that setup right there, you can tell the man watched Austin Powers when he was making this game. Because that sounds like the most Dr. Evil scheme imaginable.
yeah, pretty much.
$30 billion or we will ruin your ecosystem, you
Yeah,
know?
pretty much.
So initially referred to as Snake, had orders to rescue the U.S. president and the other hostages from the Sons of Liberty. Raiden infiltrated the Big Shell by sea while SEAL Team 10 entered by air. SEAL Team 10 was divided into two groups. Alpha Team landed at Strut B with orders to rescue the president, and Bravo Team was to assist bomb disposal expert Peter Stillman on Strut C in order to neutralize any explosives planted within the facility. As Raiden commenced his underwater infiltration from the Hudson River, he discovered a recently cut hole in the Big Shell's oil fence. After successfully entering the deep sea dock of Strut A, Shell 1, he radioed his commanding officer, Colonel Campbell, about a possible intruder other than himself. The colonel was taken by surprise since Raiden should have been the only one to take that infiltration route. Regardless, he ordered Raiden to proceed with caution after explaining some of the stealth properties of his skull suit. Raiden was preparing to exit the area when he heard sounds of a scuffle coming from behind the hatch. Opening the hatch, Raiden noticed the guard was picking himself up from the floor, having apparently regained consciousness, before heading off into the other direction. Following the guard's path into the next room, Raiden saw another soldier being catapulted out of the nearby elevator, knocking him unconscious, before coming across the prone body of the previous guard from the hallway. During the ordeal, Raiden managed to catch a brief glimpse of the person responsible, being behind the closing elevator doors, confirming that there was indeed an intruder other than himself aboard the big shell. The colonel directed Raiden towards a computer node, uh, which would allow him to access the big shell's facility network. The colonel then revealed to Raiden that he had selected the perfect system analysis for the mission. His girlfriend, Rosemary. Though Raiden was initially unhappy about this development, he reluctantly agreed to her joining the mission, but only under the condition that the participation she had was simply as an analyst and nothing else. Rose also stated to the colonel that because of this, she would not follow any orders unless it directly related to her duties. Raiden then accessed the node, his nanomachines bypassing the security clearance, and pulled up a structural map of the dock, allowing him to activate his Soliton radar. Raiden called the elevator, making his way to the rooftop. Raiden removed the rest of his diving gear in an awesome shot mirroring Metal Gear Solid's elevator intro scene. Um, Intel provided by the colonel said that the president was on Strut B along with SEAL Team 10's Alpha Team. After reaching the AB connecting bridge, Raiden received a transmission from the Alpha commander, which had been intercepted by the colonel. Apparently, Alpha team had located the president, but before they could leave with him, a mysterious entity attacked them, abruptly cutting off the transmission. Upon entering the transformer room for Strut B, Raiden discovered the many slaughtered bodies of Alpha team filling the hallway, and the president was nowhere in sight. The perpetrator was Vamp, a mysterious vampire-like member of Dead Cell who ambushed and slaughtered virtually the entire team. Vamp would have also killed Raiden if not been for the rescue efforts of a single SEAL Team 10 survivor, Iroquois Pliskin. Pliskin explained the origins of Vamp in Dead Cell and provided Raiden with a SOCOM pistol. He also identified Raiden as a member of Foxhound, even though Pliskin said that the unit was disbanded 4 years ago. Afterward, Raiden continued with his mission. Raiden made it to the BC connecting bridge. He encountered Bravo team who had surrounded Dead Cell's leader Fortune with the president in her grasp. Firing their weapons, the SEALs were unable to hit her as every bullet somehow veered away from her and grenades failed to detonate when they were thrown near her. Fortune proceeded to kill all of the members of Bravo team with her portable railgun, destroying the bridge leading to the Shell 1 core, which caused the men to fall to their dooms. Vamp and her subsequently took the president and the case holding the nuclear codes into the core. My tongue's getting tied there. Receiving a codec call from the colonel, Raiden was informed that both SEALs helicopters were shot down by a Harrier and that the SEALs assault was just a diversion to cover Raiden's infiltration. The colonel also told Raiden that they had received intelligence regarding the presence of C4 explosives, which had been planted throughout the Big Shell facility. With the new objective of helping to disarm these explosives, Raiden rendezvoused with bomb disposal expert Peter Stillman and, once again, Lieutenant J.G. Pliskin in Strut C. Stillman explained to them that Dead Cell member Fat Man was one of his best students. He also informed them that the Big Shell's security systems architect entered the Big Shell with him to get SEAL Team 10 through all the plant's security measures. After agreeing that Stillman would be safer hiding where he was due to a leg injury and the fact that he required a cane, Raiden and Pliskin headed out to disarm the C4 planted within Shells 1 and 2. So I feel like that's a good place to kind of take a break. So, introduction to Big Shell, doing the bomb disposals. What were your thoughts going through this?
I mean, all the gameplay is great. And I think that the story is really sets up even more mysteries. And I think that one of my favorite shots in the game is Raiden coming up on the elevator and the sun is kind of behind him. But you know, I wasn't sure at first if this was Roy Campbell because one, he looks a little bit younger than he did in the first game, so I thought something was up, but it sounded just like him, and he never. I don't think he ever calls himself or is called Colonel Campbell. I think he's just called the Colonel throughout the entire game, unless
Yeah, I
I'm
don't think they
mistaken.
ever do say his name, but yeah, and you recognize him as Colonel Campbell if you've played the first game.
Yeah, because I was like second guessing myself. I was like, it sounds like Campbell, but it's like he's acting even weirder. He looks maybe about 5 to 10 years younger. And I mean that could just be a graphics difference, but it's like the Campbell like portrait in the PS1 version. I mean, he looked like old, like maybe in his mid 70s. Where I would guess that this man in Metal Gear Solid 2 would be somewhere in his 60s, maybe. But yeah, I think that the introduction of Vamp, and then I mean, I love that when we get. I mean, no, this isn't. This is clearly Snake. Like
I
he
mean, yeah, he's got a different name, but he talks like him, acts like him. I mean,
he
he's not
almost
trying to
he
conceal his
almost says it
identity at all.
outright when like Raiden like asks him his name. He's like, "Oh, my name's Pliskin."
Yeah.
And of course I was like, of course it's Pliskin. But which I got a kick out of. Um, so I think it's and then showing off the new villains for through Dead Cell. I love Vamp. I think him taking out the SEAL team was really brutal. Um,
Oh my gosh, yeah.
yeah, they really earned the M rating through that scene alone. Um, and then I mean, Fortune. It's like her saxophone theme alone was just something else, and it's like that scene also has one of my favorite quotes from the game, where one of the guys throws a grenade at her, and it just sits there, and he goes a dud. Like
Yeah.
like just the way
Now,
he said
I'll be
that
honest.
was funny.
It kind of reminds me of like, it's game over, man. Like
Yeah,
that kind of cheesy B movie delivery. Um, now, I'll be honest, the introduction of Fortune was probably my favorite character introduction of the villains because just seeing her standing there and all the bullets whirring around her and everything, and she's like, "Oh, you can't bring me death either. Oh well," and just slaughtering them all. Like there's something so uniquely interesting about characters that yearn for death that can not die. Um, I see it a lot, mostly in like vampire fiction and stuff.
right.
Um, but there's something like just interesting to me about that specific characterization. That, of course, Fortune was just immediately interesting to me.
Something that Vamp does that I don't know if they ever like covered, or maybe it was through a Coda call I just never got. After he kills the SEAL team, he like cuts into himself, and he does this a couple more times throughout the game. Did they ever say like why he does that?
Um, I don't think they ever come out and say it. I just assumed it was like like a Victor Zaz thing, like from Batman, where he's just counting his kills. But I don't know if they ever come outright and say why he, you know, is making all those tally marks on himself like that.
Yeah, yeah, I thought that was interesting. And then I think the thing with Fortune was like my immediate thought was like, oh, I can't wait till I fight her and have to figure out how to beat her. Which we'll get to whether or not that happens later, I guess.
Yeah. Um, so what did you think about the bomb disarmament? I don't know if you want to call it like a mini game or like what were your thoughts on how that changed everything up so early into this?
Well, I mean, again, I think that it adds another fun element, and again, it's not just sneaking around and shooting people. This game has a lot of variety to it. Like you know, it changes things up often enough, and I think kudos to the whoever on the development team came up with this, because Kojima said that this wasn't really his idea. This was somebody else's idea. So I think that it was a cool way to do it, and I like how it kind of trained you for the eventual boss fight with Fat Man as well.
Yeah, that is pretty interesting that you mentioned like um, that the development team brought that to Kojima rather than Kojima bringing it to them. Because I feel like some of the coolest, not necessarily innovations, but like some of the coolest moments from games come from ideas like that. Like I don't know if you've played Spider-Man 2, the most recent one. I know you're an Xbox person primarily.
I've the last Spider-Man game I played, I did play Spider-Man, like the one that came out like on the PS4. I played that, and then I think the one I played before that was Web of Shadows.
Well, in the Insomniac Spider-Man 2, they uh, actually said that they had a day that was pretty much like oh my gosh, a game jam in the studio where they just told all the developers, "Hey, everyone make your own side quest for the game. The top, however many we're going to actually put in, polish up and put into the final game." And one of those ideas was actually my favorite story moment, probably in the full game, and was the closest to tears the game has brought me without actually, crying. So it's really some. I feel like the more that the directors trust their team to do stuff like that, you see very cool results. And I feel like, a lot of games would benefit from doing more things like that.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
But anyway, moving right along. Um, when all the bombs were disarmed, Raiden received some shocking and disappointing news from Stillman. Seemed that all of the baby C4s were planted in places where serious damage could not possibly be done to the big shell, and they were, turns out, were diversions for the real explosives which were hidden in the lower levels of Strut A and Strut H. The two were large enough to disturb the structure's integrity and destroy the entirety of the big shell if they both detonated. It also turned out that the real bombs were programmed to activate after all of the baby C4s were disarmed. It was revealed that Stillman was faking his leg injury after failing to disarm a bomb that killed several people, living in disgrace. Since he wasn't really injured, he was able to get to the Strut H bomb to attempt to detonate it, or rather, to attempt to disarm it. Although Raiden was able to disarm the Strut A bomb after returning to the deep sea dock, the Strut H bomb was detonated, killing Stillman. Pliskin was able to survive unscathed. As Raiden prepared to leave Strut A, he was confronted by Fortune, who was surprised since she had been expecting to find somebody else. Nevertheless, she remarked that he may still be able to bring her death. Fortune attacked Raiden, devastating the surrounding area in the process with her railgun. Raiden, unable to hit her, could only evade her attacks. Raiden was soon contacted by Campbell to relay a demand made by Fat Man. Raiden must head to the heliport of Strut E, otherwise another bomb would be detonated there, destroying the entire facility. Shortly after, Vamp arrived in the area to inform Fortune of Fat Man's apparent betrayal. Raiden, taking advantage of the distraction, took another shot at Fortune, although the bullets were deflected away from her and hit Vamp in the forehead and lower chest. While Fortune cradled Vamp in her arms, lamenting that she herself could not follow him in death, Raiden made his escape. However, moments later, Vamp awakened, having shrugged off the seemingly fatal attack. With the bomb's countdown already running, Raiden headed to the heliport and neutralized the explosive. He was then confronted by Fat Man, who professed his disinterest in Dead Cells and the Sons of Liberty's goals. Fat Man was also unaware of the existence of the ransom demands for $30 billion. His only wish was to surpass his former mentor, Peter Stillman, and become the most famous bomber in history by destroying the entire Big Shell. Challenging Raiden to stop him, he proceeded to place multiple explosives in the area, utilizing his quick speed. Raiden was forced to neutralize each bomb in turn with coolant spray while simultaneously fighting Fat Man. Um, so Fat Man, it's a unique character, don't you think?
Yeah, you mentioned unique speed. How exactly does Fat Man get that unique speed?
By his rollerblades, of course.
Yeah. Man, this is another crazy boss fight. It's cool too because I mean, you
Yeah.
like I said, the game kind of trains you for this boss fight and disarming the bombs. And I think this might, other than Ray, this might have been the only other boss that killed me a couple of times. And it was mostly because I didn't get to the bombs in time. Um, but basically, you're trying to like catch him off guard and knock him over because he's wearing a bomb suit. So the only part of him that's vulnerable is his head. So you kind of want to knock him over and shoot him in the head a couple times to get his health down.
Yeah, and he was one of my favorite boss fights in the game. Um, if not my favorite in this game, and that's just largely in part uh, due to just the constant like you gotta knock him down, you gotta shoot him in the head, you gotta run away from him, you gotta place a mine where you think he'll go. Well, he didn't go there. You got to pick that mine up and take it somewhere else, and it's just a constant battle to even get to where you can do damage to him.
Yeah,
And it's kind of interesting because we mentioned, Metal Gear Solid was the realization of what Kojima wanted to do in Metal Gear and Metal Gear 2. There was a boss fight, I think, was it in Metal Gear 2? It's like Running Man or something to that effect,
yeah, yeah.
where it's very similar. You got to place the mines in his path while he's running to kill him. So this feels like an evolution off of that idea. Um, and you keep seeing it throughout the series, him bringing old ideas back and just iterating off of it time and time again.
The way that his like I guess boss arena is set up also kind of reminded me of where you fight Vulcan Raven inside the like meat plant.
Yeah, with all the
The crates.
shipping crates, making like a little path for you. Yeah, it is very similar. I didn't even think about that.
Uh,
Um,
but yeah, good boss fight.
yeah, probably my favorite overall. And honestly, I'm kind of disappointed that there aren't more boss fights in this game because it feels like the first game you got a boss fight about every 10 paces or so. And in this one it feels like they're significantly I'm not I don't want to say less often, but it feels like
They're definitely more
they're
spread out.
more spread out from one another. There's more room to breathe in between each fight.
And I guess we could have mentioned this. We probably should have mentioned this during development. There was another boss that was intended to be in this game. It was kind of like a shark man that would like send sharks after you, and that was so there was supposed to be another member of Dead Cell, and I don't know why they. It wasn't really clear why they decided to remove him, but some of the boss elements Vamp ended up inheriting.
Yeah. Another casualty like decoy octopus, what could have been.
Right, except this guy
Um,
wasn't in the game at all.
yeah, he didn't even get a speaking line, not
Um,
even in the manual or anything.
but it's like once you like kind of defeat Fat Man, he's like there's one more bomb. Uh, you gotta. He says something along the lines of like saying that you'll never find it or it's in a place that you would least
Yeah,
expect and I kind of figured it out right away because there's a part where you're disabling the bombs earlier, and Pliskin makes a comment about, "Oh, I found a bomb on the back of one of the guards," and I'm like, I bet it's like under his butt or something. So it's like once you move him, the bomb's right there.
Oh, you don't know how mad I was the first time I ever defeated Fat Man. I was running around everywhere looking for it. Then I see the explosion happen right there on his body, and I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" And so I went through the entire fight again, moved him, and sure enough, it was sitting right there underneath him the entire time. So,
Interesting.
which I think at that point I hadn't even, moved anybody's unconscious body so far. So I wasn't really sure that I could do that to that point. So
Yeah, because that codec call you have with Pliskin is one of the kind of the optional ones. Because I think I was having trouble finding one of the bombs, and I was like, well, let me do a codec call to Pliskin and see if I can get a hint, and that was kind of one of them. And I was like, well, that didn't really help me, but it ended up helping me later on.
yeah. Um. So yeah, after defeating Fat Man, um, he collapses from his injuries, informing Raiden that he had yet to disarm the biggest bomb in this place. Raiden discovered that the last bomb was hidden underneath his body. With the bomb threat now over, the colonel informed him that the hostages, including the president, were still in danger. Afterwards, Pliskin told Raiden that the only way to rescue the hostages was to extract them by chopper. Raiden proceeded to leave the heliport in order to locate the president when he was confronted by a cyborg ninja, which, Gray Fox has already died twice, so why not?
Right? Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was like, something weird is going on, and it's like his accent was also different. But I was like, I mean, he's a spy, so it's not inconceivable that he couldn't change his accent. But I was like, something weird is going on with this guy.
So actually, there's an interesting nugget that I found when I was reading the development diary that I neglected to put in earlier. So originally, Kojima wanted to have a cyborg ninja in the game that was obviously female. Um, like he mentioned, pronounced breasts and all this stuff. And he said immediately the player is going to think of three women: Mei Ling, Naomi Hunter, and Sniper Wolf. And he's like, and I can even have all three of the original actresses come back, different lines be voiced by each one of them, and like kind of mold them into each other using digital effects. And he's like, the best thing to do would be go through the end of the game and reveal that it's someone completely different to really catch them by surprise. So it's an idea that he had for a while going on, and originally he didn't even want to make it look like Gray Fox. So the fact that he went by Deep Throat, which was Gray Fox's code name in the first game,
Yep.
and looked just like him. Apparently, that whole thing could have not even been. Um, so moving on from that, Ninja told him that a Secret Service agent named Richard Ames knew the location of the president, but was being held hostage in the Shell 1 core. The mysterious informant then provided Raiden with an enemy uniform which he could use to infiltrate the area. However, the ninja warned Raiden that he had three obstacles upon entering the Shell 1 core. First, the elevator was guarded by pressure-activated surveillance camera, necessitating the use of the BDU to gain clearance to use the elevator. Second, Ames could only be identified by a unique heartbeat due to his pacemaker, necessitating a remote sound amplifier to locate him while at the same time not drawing too much suspicion. Third, the door leading to the room the hostages were located in was wired with a biometric scanning system, necessitating that Raiden scan one of the guards to open the door. The ninja also revealed that Raiden to Raiden that the terrorists had access to a nuke which could be activated since the nuclear football that could activate the nuke was brought to the Big Shell by a Navy captain. The ninja told him that the nuke wasn't brought by the terrorists themselves, but that it was already in the Big Shell to begin with, since the shell wasn't really a decontamination plant. In reality, the Big Shell was housing a new Metal Gear. The ninja then left, but not before supplying Raiden with a cell phone for future texts. Once Raiden located Ames in the Shell 1 core, Ames told him that both of them were working for the same people. He then told him the president's location in the Shell 2 core, that the tanker accident and oil spill 2 years ago were planned, and that the Big Shell was built specifically for the development of the Metal Gear. Ames explained that the president must be helping the terrorists under his own free will, as his vital signs acted as a biometric password needed to activate the nuke and the new Metal Gear. Raiden and Ames then cut their conversation short when Ocelot and Solid Snake appeared. Raiden used the directional microphone to eavesdrop on them, learning that they had planned on establishing Outer Heaven. When Raiden mentioned the $30 billion ransom, Ames told him that there was no threat or ransom. According to Ames, the terrorists' intentions all along was the high-altitude detonation of the nuke over Manhattan, which would cause an electromagnetic pulse, thus liberating it. Revolver Ocelot spoke to Ames, revealing that Ames was sent there to keep tabs on the president, suspecting that he might betray them. Before Ames could give any more information, he suddenly suffered a fatal heart attack. Surprise, surprise, just like every person you talk to in the first game.
Yeah. At first I was like, oh, it's because he talked to Pliskin and somehow Ames was on the Fox die list or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, there are so many red herrings as you go through that you're like, oh, it could be this, it could be that, but it turns out half of those are true and another half might not have actually happened.
Right.
So before Raiden could be captured by Ocelot's forces, the cyborg ninja suddenly intervened, permitting Raiden to escape. Raiden then headed to President Johnson's location, but on his way there, he was confronted by the terrorist commander, proclaiming himself to be Solid Snake. Enraged by this, Pliskin revealed himself to be the real Solid Snake and fired on the imposter from a helicopter, thus giving us the amazing meme, "That's not the real Solid Snake."
Right.
Or
Yeah.
that's not Solid Snake. However it goes, um, utilizing an advanced exoskeleton, the terrorist leader evaded Snake's attack and boarded the Harrier, being piloted by Vamp. Snake then told Raiden to shoot it down, throwing a Stinger missile launcher down to him. While Raiden was successful, the Harrier plummeted, only to be caught by Metal Gear Ray. Ray proceeded to launch missiles into the air, destroying sections of the Big Shell and damaging Snake's helicopter, forcing it to land. Ray then departed into the ocean, taking the Harrier with it. After recovering from Ray's attack, Solid Snake contacted Raiden by codec, informing him of the situation and introducing him to his partner, the helicopter's pilot, Otacon. Otacon had rescued Snake from the sinking tanker 2 years earlier, and Snake had faked his own death by using the body of Liquid Snake in place of his own. Which brings up so many questions for me, because how did Ocelot get Liquid's arm if Solid Snake and Otacon had the body?
So
And
I think
if
it's
Solid Snake and Otacon had the body, how did they not notice the arm missing before the whole Liquid Ocelot ordeal?
so it's heavily implied through like some of the dialogue, and maybe it's just me reading into it that they got the body from some facility. So clearly, so there was something. So Liquid's body was at a different facility. Ocelot got the arm, and then uh, Otacon and Snake stole the body. And they mention that the arm is missing when they think it's Snake's dead body. But yeah, so I got the impression that Liquid was at some other organization's body facility, probably being studied. because he's got Big Boss's DNA. So, but you know, Pliskin and well, I think they start calling him Snake at this point. So Snake and Otacon
Yeah.
kind of sort of wink at the audience and say, don't think too hard about it.
Yeah, that's one of those. It's like, all right, so I mean, even if it was at a different facility, how'd they get it so quick as to,
Well, they're just
hide it from the Patriots who supposedly know everything about everything? Yeah, there's so many potential questions that could come out of this that really the best way to look at it is just, like you said, don't think about it too hard. But
right.
I mean,
And a question that I had during this scene, and I think I still have, because we do have a boss fight during this part. Or at least I consider it a boss fight because you fight the jet plane with Pliskin piloting the helicopter, and you're basically supposed to use a stinger while also making sure you don't shoot Pliskin by accident.
yeah,
The fighter jet is being piloted by Vamp and Solidus. So my biggest question is how, when Solidus shows up, epic entrance by the way, and reveals himself, how are Raiden and Snake not like, holy crap, that's the ex-president? Because I mean, if
yeah, for real. I mean, that's George W. Bush right there,
right, yeah,
standing,
like yeah,
43rd president.
and it's like Solidus looks like the face model looks like Snake, except maybe about 10 or 15 years older. So it's like my question, because they don't really acknowledge this. Like, how do they not like recognize that he looks like the former president? Like you said, if George Bush was revealed to be somebody like that, you'd recognize him right away. So I wonder if he was using, I don't know, some sort of disguise while being president for however long his term was. That's the only thing that makes sense to me.
That is kind of interesting too, because there's mentions to President George Sears in Metal Gear Solid, but in that same game, Liquid says that him and Solid were the only two successful clones from the Les Enfants Terribles, or however you say it, project. So seemingly, it was the fact that this third clone exists was information that was suppressed to the public. But then, you would think if Solid and Liquid looked at the president of the United States, they would say, "Huh, it kind of looks like me."
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, yeah. So the only thing that makes sense to me is that he used a disguise of some sort.
Yeah, and with the Patriots, it's explained later on the Patriots are the ones that decide the people in power. It would make sense that the Patriots would want to cover their tracks because not only does he look like, a terrorist and an ex Black Ops war hero, he also looks like a war hero from the 1960s who, became a terrorist and made his own sovereign nation. There's a lot of baggage that comes with having a face like that,
Right.
especially after Solid Snake his the whole Shadow Moses still.
Yeah, they
So
never they
there's
never
got to be there's
acknowledge
got to be
this.
something going on.
Yeah, they never say like what he did during his presidency to, you know, not have the face of Big Boss slash Solid Snake. Um, but it's the only thing that makes sense because it's like it because if not, that's a kind of a plot hole, and not like one of the ones where you can kind of just be like, oh, that doesn't really matter because it kind of does.
Yeah, I mean, you'd think there'd be a lot of questions about that, but anyway, I guess one of those, wink, wink, nudge, nudge type of moments from Kojima. But anyway, yeah, I didn't even expect to go down that rabbit hole, but that's really got me thinking now. I'm gonna have to see if there's. I'm gonna look after we finish doing this and see if I can find anything about this because surely we are not the first people to have this thought.
I mean, it's also
Um,
entirely possible that any questions we have could have been covered in some sort of in any of the codec calls, because like that's one of the fun things about these games is like you can have codec calls that you completely miss and then get in further playthroughs.
oh yeah, I mean I'm sure there's plenty that I will never see in all these games. So who knows? I will do research after we get done with this though, and I'll let you know what I find. Um. Anyway, moving on, they revealed to Raiden that there were they were there to stop the terrorists from using the new Metal Gear prototype, continuing their work for the anti-Metal Gear organization Philanthropy. They also told Raiden that Otacon had another reason for being in the big shell, to rescue his sister that he has a very weird relationship with, Emma Emmerich. Um, Having been convinced of the nuclear button had been successfully accessed due to Ray's sudden appearance, Raiden immediately headed towards the Shell 2 core to rescue President Johnson. The damage to the Shell 1 Shell 2 connecting bridge forced Raiden to hang grip all the way over to Shell 2 via the dislodged support beam, an act that was also aided him in avoiding the Gerlugovich soldiers on the next strut, who had arrived to investigate the area. After entering the Shell 2 core, Raiden listened in on the radio conversation between Olga Gerlukovich and the terrorist leader. Olga stated that she had unfinished business with Solid Snake and that after the whole mess, she and her men were to leave for Russia and live for themselves. Olga then activated an electrified walkway leading to the room in which the president was imprisoned, to prevent him from trying to escape and also to deter intruders from rescuing him. Unable to reach the president, Raiden went into the flooded lower floors of the shell to locate the Nikita remote-controlled missile launcher and successfully managed to destroy the control panel for the electricity. Now, I don't know about you, but underwater swimming sections in games, um, particularly from this era, are a real pain point for me.
Yeah, usually
So,
they're pretty bad. This one is fine. Like I've had worse for sure. At least there's plenty of like points you can come up and catch your breath. I didn't really have any moments where I risked uh, drowning too much.
yeah. Now, I'll be honest, I had so many rations built up. I'm pretty sure coming into this, every time I've played, I have had 6 rations sitting in my inventory. So my approach to this every time I've played has been just to brute force the mines that are directly in my path and patch it all up with all of the rations I have. So I will, if there's like a mine that I can't really wiggle around, I'll just hit it and take a ration and move on. And that way the path's cleared for the next time I need to go through.
Right. Yeah, I kind of had that thought too for one of the things that is coming up soon where I was like, I'm going to be escorting somebody through this. I might as well just hit the bomb now and just damage myself.
Yeah. Um, but it really sticks in my mind because I think it's so different from the whole rest of the game. Um, but yeah, I remember it giving me a lot of trouble the first time in particular, going through and having to learn how to control riding in the water, and then trying to sneak around these mines until I just finally decided to just go straight through them.
Well, I mean,
Um,
it could have been worse. It sounds like we were supposed to have an underwater boss from this shark guy and that was supposed to send sharks after you. So at least there wasn't that.
Maybe there's a reason that got cut. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, you could be onto something. They were just like, man, this boss fight is janky and impossible. I mean, I love sharks, but you know, if you can't do it right, then maybe don't do it at all.
Yeah. Um, anyway, moving on, we've got Ryden coming into the president's room where the president told him about the Patriots, a mysterious organization that secretly ruled over America, even deciding who the next president would be, and telling him that no one knew who the Patriots really were. Johnson only knew that every key decision was made by a group of 12 men called the Wiseman's Committee. He also explained that the terrorist leader was in fact the 43rd President of the United States, George Sears, who is known by the code name of Solidus Snake, a clone of the legendary soldier Big Boss created in L'Enfant Terrible, however you say that again, project. Johnson added that it was Solidus who orchestrated the Shadow Moses incident in 2005, but he was removed from office by the Patriots. Solidus wanted to challenge the Patriots, unlike Johnson, who had simply wished to become one of them. Johnson also confirmed to Ryden that the Big Shell was merely a cover-up for the construction of Arsenal Gear, a gigantic mobile fortress that employed mass-produced unmanned Metal Gear rays to defend itself, and had the ability to fire nuclear warheads from anywhere on the planet. It also had access to the military's tactical network, allowing it to have absolute control over the nation's armed forces and its nuclear arsenal. However, Arsenal's true purpose was to filter information from the internet and other forms of digital communication using an AI called GW. By doing this, the Patriots wished to shape history as they saw fit, while maintaining the secret of their own existence. And if that doesn't speak volumes to how Kojima sees the world, you know, this giant fortress was made to launch nukes from anywhere that it could be in the entire world, but its real purpose is propaganda.
Yeah. I mean, even just like the idea of a shadow government, I mean, it's not too far fetched to believe. Especially
Yeah.
like, I mean, now that I mean, this game is prophetic in that way, and I think that there's, like, the Patriots fear the coming of like the digital age and the internet and the exchange of ideas between not only people in the United States but people across different countries, because it really does peel back the I guess the facade. And I'm not a big conspiracy guy myself, but I also like am like, some of this stuff seems kind of bizarre.
Yeah, you mentioned it being prophetic. You mean, it mentions the viral meme, AI. I mean, it's stuff from this game all the way back in what 2002 was when it released here in the US. I mean, there's stuff from it that's still coming true slowly to this day. I mean, back then, I'm sure, an AI like GW making decisions on um, what to do, giving advice. That's, I mean, to me, that's Chat GPT on
Right.
a national scale.
Yeah.
Because it can do the stuff that it's talking about GW doing. It can, filter the information you get through a certain lens. That's been shown by like users influencing the results that it'll give to uh, people when it's prompted with questions. Just I don't want to get too far into that aspect of it, but it's just so interesting to see things that were created back in 2000, around turn of the century, being able to, I guess, foresee the kind of problems that we're coming into right now in 2026.
Right.
Um, it's I don't know, it's just interesting for me to look back at that, retrospectively now. Um, But moving on, Johnson's last request was that Raiden locates GW's main programmer, Emma Emmerich, and provide her with a computer worm to eradicate the AI. Feeling he'd said everything he needed to, Johnson suddenly grabbed Raiden's gun, attempting to have Raiden shoot him, thinking that he was there to kill him. Raiden resisted, however, before the patri- excuse me. However, before the president could make Raiden kill him, Revolver Ocelot intervened, shooting Johnson before Raiden could act. Afterwards, Snake told Raiden that he knew about the existence of the Arsenal Gear project and the big shell being a front for the project. And as such, there was no threat. Excuse me, I skipped a line there. Afterwards, Snake told Raiden that he knew about the existence of the Arsenal Gear project and the big shell being a front for that project. And as such, there was no threat of dioxins being released into the river. Afterwards, Snake told Raiden what had happened during the tanker incident, how the Patriots had used the incident to launch a smear campaign against Snake, and how the U.S. Marines' Ray project had conflicted with the U.S. Navy's and the Patriots' Arsenal Gear project. Raiden then headed to find Emma Emmerich. On the way, he fought and defeated Vamp, confused as to how he could possibly be alive. Now, you want to talk about a boss fight that gave me trouble? The first, maybe the second time I played this game, I put the game down for a good probably week or so,
Oh,
just because
really?
I could not get past the vamp. Yes, I don't know if I was on. It was either normal or hard, and I think, and after that, I played it on easy each time. Just because this one fight, because I don't know what it is about it. Um, I think it was the trying to aim around in the first person to try to get a beat on Vamp, and he was just so fast getting around that I couldn't. I don't know, skill issue, I guess. But
What weapon did you use this time?
this time I stuck to the just the pistol. Um, I don't know why, but that's probably part of my issue. But in the Metal Gear games, I don't typically stray too far away from the base pistol.
Yeah.
Um, I typically stick with like in 2 and 3. I typically stick with the non-lethal pistol. Um, 3, I do normally carry a shotgun just for those special occasions, but I I don't know why. I don't know what it is about the games, but the pistols seem to be, you know, able to be used for a wide variety of situations. And ammo, if you're playing the games right, is not scarce at all.
No.
So I really don't see any reason besides like Sniper Wolf, or like the section with where you're covering EE while she's on um, the oil fence, stuff like that, where you need a specific weapon to progress. I don't really seek out other weapons whenever I'm playing these games. What about you?
So when I started fighting him, I think I shot him a couple times with my pistol, and I was like, he keeps dancing out of the way, and I was like, well, let's see if he can dodge a rocket. So I pull out the stinger, and it shows that it'll lock onto him. So I was like, okay, let's give this a shot. And after that, it was easy. like the
See,
stinger made a huge difference.
I don't know why I didn't think about that, but like whenever he does the little spin and like throws the knives at you, I was trying to shoot each one of those knives out of the air and get to him before he stabbed me. Everything. Just pull out a rocket launcher; it'll be fine.
Yeah, he didn't kill me, which I was kind of disappointed. I was like, damn, he like made mincemeat out of those. And I will say I was playing on easy this time, but my thought was, I played on easy in Metal Gear Solid, and that was still a challenge. And this game does still have its fair share of challenges, but I feel like easier mode in Metal Gear Solid 2 was maybe at times too easy. But I mean, to be fair to Vamp, I did shoot him with the stinger. But it's like once I figured out that that worked, I was like, I mean, he's not going to be able to dodge this stuff. So I didn't really have that much difficulty with him once I, figured out that that's what would do him in.
Yeah, I also think it's really interesting because like you've got the pool in the middle of the arena, and it's after the section where you're diving through and dodging, weaving all these mines. But he's like, yeah, that's I forget the exact explanation, but he's basically like, yeah, that's heavy water. You get in that, you're not getting out.
It's he says something along the lines that it's like hyper oxygenated, and because he's a vampire, it doesn't affect him. What I thought was weird is you can see like a ration uh, underneath the water. So I don't know if you're able to go into the water later into the game, but I also wonder if that was also Kojima's way of being like trying to fool you into trying to jump into the water. But luckily, I didn't jump in or fall in by accident.
Yeah, I never went into the water, but that's interesting. I wonder if that was like, part of the Shark Boy fight or something like that. Um, it does kind of make you wonder.
So I don't know. The boss fight's not bad by any means, and maybe it's the way that I went about it that kind of made it seem underwhelming because he, is such an efficient killer in the cutscenes. But I could see him being difficult if you just stuck with weapons that don't lock on to him and explode. So when I go for my next playthrough and do a no kill run, I'm sure when I use the tranquilizer, it'll be a lot more difficult.
It's possible. I promise it's possible. But anyway, before his defeat, Vamp revealed that even without the possibility of a nuclear strike, they could still use Arsenal's purified hydrogen bomb to emit an EMP over Manhattan, knocking it offline. He also hinted that, contrary to what the press stated, Dead Cell was actually framed for the terrorist acts 6 months prior by the Patriots. Ryden then rescued Emma, although he had first had to convince Emma that he wasn't with the terrorist group, and managed to convince her that he wasn't among them by showing her that he had codec nanomachines, which
Yeah,
I think is interesting too because he was Peter Stillman was really suspicious of him as well. He's like, whenever him and Snake first Peter Stillman, he's like, yeah, Snake, you I trust, but you, Ryden, I'm still not so sure about you. I think he specifically calls out like, I know he's not a terrorist, but you, I'm still don't know about.
yeah, he does say something like that. And well, I felt really bad during the scene because she's Otacon's sister, so she pees herself. But Emma kind of looks like a 13-year-old girl, so it's not as funny when you scare a kid and she pees herself. It's a little bit funnier when it's a grown ass man. But I also found out I was like, oh, she's supposed to be 18, but it's kind of like Ashley from the original Resident Evil 4, where she looks like she's 13 or something like that.
Yeah, I will say she looks really young in this game, which makes the whole part about Otacon's kind of crush on her all the more weird to me, because in my mind, Otacon's like at least upper 20s, maybe in his 30s, and then you've got Emma Emmerich, 18 years old.
Do we want to get into that now, or do we want to get into once she brings it up? Because when does she start talking about her and her brother kind of playing house or whatever was the way she put it?
Oh, we can get into it now because I didn't actually call it out whenever later on.
So to me, and I could have been misinterpreting it, is I've been told, and he hasn't said this recently, but when my youngest stepson was like maybe 5 or 6, he would tell me multiple times that I can't marry his mom because he was going to marry his mom. And that's just things that kids say or think without.
That's why I have a 4 and a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
I have a 5-year-old girl, 4-year-old boy that almost every day are talking about like how, they're gonna marry each other and be mommy and daddy, and you know, so I see where you're getting at
So
about that.
so my thing is that I don't think, unless I'm mistaken or misremembering, I don't think Otacon is ever the one that says, "Oh, I felt that way," or uh, initiated that game. It's mostly her talking about that. So to me, I think she's just remembering playing house with her brother, and her brother probably just played along just to, um, you know, just for fun, but not like seriously, because there is a ten year difference. So if she was 6 and he was 16, he was like, okay, she's wanting to pretend she's my wife. I'll just play along, but not in like a creepy way. Do you know what I'm saying? Does that make any sense?
Yeah, yeah. See, I didn't really think about it in that context, but you know, given that lens, I see what you're
It
saying.
would be different
But to me,
if he told the story of like, oh, Emma and I used to play pretend that we were husband and wife, but no, it was her talking about her childhood, and I think um, that's kind of the lens that I look at it through at it. But I could see how somebody else might see it as creepy, because if Otacon wasn't just playing along for the sake of, oh, this is a kid that doesn't know the difference between family love and like loving a spouse.
yeah, and you got to think too. They were ripped apart at a young age by a tragedy.
Yeah, dude,
So
the thing they get into with her mom and his stepmom is messed up. Like
yeah,
it's horrible.
that's why I didn't even put it in the breakdown. But I mean, it's yeah, it's rough, and I can only imagine what that would do, like how that would color the memories of the one friend, close person that you had. Like especially in EE's case, it seems like she was really lonely, after everything happened, and um, her and Hal were separated.
Yeah.
So I I can see where that would you know cause you to hold on to those memories even more tight.
Yes, it's like
Um,
I thought the escort mission with her was actually pretty good. And it's like it didn't overstay its welcome, and I don't know what you thought.
I hate that I didn't know I needed the sniper rifle until I got there because I would have the trophy for the no kill run if that wasn't the case. Um, this is this is the one spot where I ended up having to kill somebody because there was so for context, um, a lot of the games I play um, that are story heavy I play and my wife watches me play because she enjoys the stories of them. We do that for we've done it for Kingdom Hearts, Clair Obscur Expedition 33 recently, and we did it with the Metal Gear games that I've played so far. So my second playthrough, I was going for the no kill run, and she was also watching the story unfold as I was playing it. And I looked it up, and there was going to be a lot of backtracking involved to get the tranquilizer sniper rifle, and there was a lethal sniper rifle that I could get a lot quicker, and so I just went for that and didn't worry about backtracking, and it cost me the no kill run.
I
So I'm
wonder
still
I wonder if what you could have done, and I don't know if this would have worked, is because there's a point where you're trying to protect her, and Snake is like, just call me when you want me to start shooting. Like if you could have had him kill the guys instead. You know what I mean?
I waited to let him do it, but he won't take out all of them.
Okay, so I wonder.
So I did try that.
So I wonder. It's like if you could have had him take out the guys, and you take does killing uh the drones count is does that count against your no kill run? Because they're not
I don't
living.
think so because the trank doesn't do anything to him. It's like not a powerful enough round. I mean,
Right.
if that counted, then shooting the cameras out should count as a kill too,
Right. You're
in
right.
my mind.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I think the escort mission is actually kind of fun, and I like the interaction between Wright and Emma. I think, once again, Kojima really endears you to these side characters, and, Rose is calling and being like, "No, you're getting real cozy with Emma, aren't you?" And I kind of rolled my eyes because I was like, I kind of saw what Wright was trying to do, trying to keep her calm because she's terrified of the water. So
Yeah, just trying to comfort her, get her to the other side safely. You know.
I could see Emma flirting with him, but I think he was just trying to be nice.
Yeah, that's one thing. Raiden gets a lot of crap from everyone around him, but at almost every turn, I'm like, yeah, if I was in that situation, I feel like I would be doing pretty much what he's doing right now.
Yeah, but
But
I mean, of course, the escort mission has to end, and how does it end?
well, we actually totally skipped over about two paragraphs here. So let me
Oh, we
let me
did. My
backtrack a little
bad.
bit. And no, you're good. Let me backtrack here, and let's see. So, um, while taking a short break, Emma and Wright told Ryden that she knew about the Patriots. She explained that she had created GW, distributing a program to assist it in a program supposedly used to counter the Y2K bug. Luckily, however, GW was not ready for activation and still lacked necessary factors for judging situations. Emma then mentioned that there was supposed to be a major test within the next few days, which was to provide GW with complex data to study. The pair then proceeded to head to the Shell 1 core. However, thanks to Ray's earlier missile attack, the bridge connecting the two shells had been destroyed, and they needed to cross the oil fence from Shell 2 Strut L to Shell 1 Strut E. Emma slowly made her way across, with Raiden and Snake providing cover with sniper fire. Emma was almost all the way there when Vamp appeared, once again, holding her at knife point. Raiden quickly fired at Vamp, killing him once again, so he should only have 6 lives left by my count. But before he fell into the ocean, he impaled Emma. Snake ran to her, shooting down nearby ciphers along the way. Snake then took her into the Shell 1 core. When Raiden got there, they were inputting the virus that Emma had created to destroy GW. Emma and Otacon shared one final moment together, which we kind of mentioned earlier, before she died as a result of her wound. At that moment, Snake discovered that the virus had not installed properly, and the trio came up with a plan to get inside Arsenal gear, their only choice now being to take out Solidus and his men. Otacon decided it would be best if he attempted to help out the hostages, as he would only get in their way. Snake reassured him that he was the only one who could save those hostages, and Otacon set off. And I want to mention real quick, I think the relationship between Otacon and Snake is one of the best relationships, especially looking at where it started to where they are now, um, because they really do work as a team phenomenally well. And starting off, he was Snake was the stoic soldier, and Otacon was hiding in a closet peeing his pants. But now we're to the point that, you know, Snake's like, yeah, go save those hostages. You're the only one who can do this. We've got this covered. You go take care of them. And they've built a bond over the years that, I mean, you can see that they really trust each other in the heat of the action. You know, everything's going on. That they're the one that has the other one's back.
Yeah,
So I just think that's an interesting development from the first game.
right. Yeah, I really love the shot. After Emma dies, it's a really like sad and terrible moment, but where the three of them are walking together in kind of slow motion, and then it's like before, when Snake is kind of talking to Otacon, they have this really this secret handshake, I guess. Because it's like Otacon is kind of like saying, I don't have anybody left, but that's not true. It's like he still has, his, I guess what I would consider now adopted brother Snake. Like that. That's kind of like the the bond I got between the two of them now is they're kind of like brothers.
Yeah. Um, so after Otacon left to rescue the hostages, Snake mentioned to Raiden that they need a hand getting inside. Just then, the cyborg ninja appeared once again and revealed himself to have been Olga Gurlukovich in disguise. Raiden was then knocked unconscious by Olga, with Snake saying that he didn't recall ever saying that he was on Raiden's side, which had me like my mind was blown. Whenever I first did that, I was like, what the heck? They're just going to throw me to the, you know, liquid ocelot and all the rest of them after getting this far. You just, you know, disposable weapon, like it was mentioned in the diary,
Yeah,
which I think is cool because it did say that he wanted every character to tell a lie or betray somebody at least once, and he didn't just mean the enemies. It even goes to Snake. It may have been, as we're about to find out, a fake betrayal, but still the impact of the scene is there.
right.
It really did shock me. What did you think about that?
I mean, he's right. He did. He didn't ever actually say, that we were on the same side. But yeah, I was curious to see. Like, I was like, shit, where's this gonna go next? I wondered, I was like, is Snake gonna be out for the rest of the game? Like, are we not gonna see him for the rest of the game? Maybe until the end. And I guess that kind of happens. But yeah, it was a good surprise.
I feel like the game is chock full of shit. What's going to happen next moments? If I'm being honest,
Yeah.
um, which honestly is what kind of draws me into this one so much because it feels like a mystery that just keeps slowly unfolding and showing more and more layers the entire runtime. Even down to the very end, they're like slowly peeling the well. I guess at the end they're quickly peeling the layers off, but it's still unfurling to the very end. Um, but anyway, we'll get there in just a minute. For now, when Raiden comes to, he's tied into a torture bed completely naked. Solidus and Ocelot talked with him, and Solidus, remembering that he taught Raiden everything he knew during the Liberian Civil War when Raiden's real parents died. Uh, he was the star of Solidus's small boy army, earning him nicknames like Jack the Ripper and White Devil. Solidus now had an eye patch over his left eye, which was damaged when Raiden took down the Harrier, with Ocelot commenting that he was the spitting image of Big Boss. After Ocelot left, Olga walked in and told Raiden about her child, whom she had never met because she was stolen by the Patriots. Olga had told Raiden that if he were to fail his mission, her child would be killed. Olga could not let this happen, and she had been sent by the Patriots to assist Raiden. She told him that Snake was waiting up ahead before leaving the room. So now, you hear about the Patriots throughout the entire time, and now it's like, okay, so I am one of the Patriots. Now, I am the bad guy of this story, is what it really feels like.
Yeah.
Ryan then received a call from Rose asking him if what Solidus said was true, which he admitted to. He had been a child soldier raised by Solidus to be a ruthless killing machine. After making his way through the hangar, which housed many mass-produced Metal Gear Ray units, He was called by Rose again, who nervously told Raiden that she had been a spy for the Patriots all along. She became his girlfriend simply to keep an eye on him, but truly fell in love with him. She changed her appearance to suit his desires, but her transmission was eventually cut off after telling Jack that she was pregnant with his baby, which the reveal of his name being Jack and, her name is Rose, it's kind of
Yes.
funny.
Yeah. I think even during the documentary, I think Kojima mentions that it's clearly a nod to Titanic because I mean they are on a vessel or I guess structure that's on the water, and Jack and Rose is the main characters in the Titanic movie.
Yeah. And I will say, this little conversation between Rose and Jack or Ryden, um, there's one part that really sticks with me because she mentions whenever they first start dating that she goes into his bedroom and there's nothing on the walls, just a plain room and a bed. And she like breaks down and she's like, "How can anyone live like that?" And she talks about how as they've been together, he's grown as a person and she's truly fallen in love with him. And I don't know, it's a really kind of an impactful moment, um, even if, it's kind of cut off at the end. Um, but that's one thing that kind of leaves me with my head scratching, because how much of that was real, how much of that story is real, which I mean we'll get to it. That's kind of the whole point of the game, I guess.
Yeah, pretty
But
much.
we'll get to that when we get to it. So after his bonds were released by Olga, a distressed Raiden pressed on and met up with Snake. Snake apologized for his earlier betrayal, saying he needed to use Raiden to sneak his way into Arsenal gear. The two of them then battled their way through the Arsenal Tengu commando unit, and on the way, Otacon discovered that the Colonel Campbell who had been helping Raiden throughout the mission was not the real Colonel, but an AI created by GW, cobbled together from Raiden's hopes and expectations. Just then, Snake was confronted by Fortune, who had been waiting for Snake as she believed that he killed her father, Scott Dolph, from the tanker. Snake and Fortune prepared to battle as Raiden headed up a nearby ladder, and Raiden appeared on a giant platform. Concealing his presence, Solidus called out to Raiden, telling him of the S3 plan, or Solid Snake Simulation, which had been devised to create the perfect warrior through VR training which Raiden had gone through. Raiden was then forced to battle a horde of Metal Gear Rays, destroying several with his Stinger missile launcher before eventually giving in to exhaustion and falling to his knees. So, the Metal Gear Ray section is probably the most iconic fight from this game, if I had to guess.
It's pretty
Either that or the
ridiculous.
final boss fight.
I read up because I was curious because they mentioned there's like 25 or 26 of them, and depending on the difficulty you select, you have to defeat a certain amount. Like for mine was easy. I think I had to defeat 3 or 4 of them. But apparently, if you go with the hardest difficulty, you have to beat all 25 of them.
That is insane.
It's like I can't even imagine. It's like
I also thought it was really cool that whenever, right after the whole AI twist is explained, each Ray unit has its own designation. Um, but there's one that is Ray RO5E. So
yes.
it spells out Rose.
And I thought I
Um,
was like, okay, I'm having trouble like killing them. I was like, that's the one I have to get. But after it went down, it kept going. I was like, okay, so that's clearly not the trick.
yeah, but I thought that was really cool little nod there. As soon as the AI twist was revealed, that it's like, oh, this is all just made up for me, pretty much. Um, yeah, I mean, there's not really much to talk about as far as this one goes. It's not as involved as like the Metal Gear Rex fight from Solid, or Any of the others, it's just, you know, shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot until it's done.
Yeah,
But I did think it was really cool, like the spectacle of one man facing down,
it's
you
ridiculous
know,
because
a ton of giant mechs.
it's like it makes no sense. It's like, wait a minute, these things are supposed to be, super powerful, bring countries to their knees, but yet one super soldier is taking out potentially all 25 of them.
Yeah, it's just insane, and I think that's the biggest thing to say. Like the biggest takeaway from the fight is just it's crazy. So after Raiden falls to his knees, Solidus emerges from his hiding place, ready to kill off Raiden before Olga jumped out in front of him, confronting Solidus. As she gave her life to save Raiden and her child, Solidus ordered the remaining Rays to kill Raiden, but Emma's GW virus started to take effect. Angered by this new development, Solidus destroyed the remaining Rays and cursed the Patriots. As Fortune entered the area with the handcuffed snake, Raiden passed out. When he awakened the next day, April 30th, Raiden found himself, Solidus Snake, Revolver Ocelot, Fortune, and handcuffed Solid Snake atop Arsenal gear. Solidus then revealed his true intention, locating information within GW regarding the identities of the Patriots. Solidus planned to hunt down the individual members while Fortune and the Sons of Liberty would unintentionally serve as a diversion with their command of Arsenal gear, since they actually planned to destroy Manhattan with the purified hydrogen bomb instead of going along with Solidus's original idea of using it to create an EMP field to black out Manhattan. Ocelot, seemingly amused by this plan, then revealed to the group that the entire incident had actually been orchestrated by the Patriots all along, and the similarities between Shadow Moses and the Big Shell crisis were much more than mere coincidence. The Renegade Special Forces unit Dead Cell, Raiden's relationship to the terrorist leader, and a computer virus that mimicked Fox Die were all elements scripted to turn Raiden into the perfect soldier. Similar to President Johnson, the Patriots had used Solidus's ambition to their own ends. However, the one thing that they had not planned on was the appearance of the real Solid Snake, which is why the AI colonel had repeatedly told Raiden that Snake wasn't part of this simulation, and not to rely on his help. Ocelot then proceeded to kill Fortune, revealing that her apparent supernatural luck was simply the result of Patriot technology, and climbed aboard Metal Gear Ray. However, when Ocelot fired Ray's payload, a dying Fortune miraculously deflected its missiles, protecting Raiden, Snake, and Solidus. Which, I'll just say right there, the biggest disappointment of the game for me, because I was really looking forward to a Fortune boss fight,
Me too.
especially after that whole like the first introduction to her being so incredible and that little skirmish you have with her. I was really looking forward to a full fight where you actually figure out a way to circumvent the field somehow or have to get in close and go fist to fist something.
Yeah, and
But just
I have more thoughts on this, but I think it would be more appropriate to bring my, I guess, perspective during the final like section of the review. The overall thoughts. But overall, I agree with you. As like I was like, man, I was kind of like looking forward to doing an actual boss fight with her.
yeah. Um, as Ocelot prepared for a final assault, his arm suddenly spasms and he is once again possessed by the spirit of Liquid Snake. From Ray's cockpit, Liquid proclaimed that it was he who had leaked information about Arsenal gear to Otacon in order to draw Snake out to the Big Shale. Armed with Ocelot's knowledge of the Patriots' whereabouts, he intended to go and destroy them all. After directing Arsenal gear onto a collision course with Manhattan, Liquid climbed back inside Ray and took off. Snake, having broken free of his handcuffs, chased and dove into the ocean after Ray. Arsenal gear proceeded on its course, crashing into the banks of New York City and through the streets of Lower Manhattan, destroying a sizable portion of the lower west side of the city, before stopping at Federal Hall. After falling from Arsenal gear to the hall's rooftop, In recovering their senses, Solidus attempted to explain his motives to Raiden, expressing his anger at being unable to pass his own genetic legacy he wished to be remembered in history. He wanted to destroy the Patriots, not for his own greedy ends, but so that he could restore freedom, civil rights, and opportunities which had been taken away. Raiden then received a codec call from the Patriots via another AI in the form of both the Colonel and Rose. The AI explained the true nature of the Patriots' goals to Raiden, hinting that they now existed on a digital plane of existence. The dawn of the digital age had allowed for an overabundance of trivial information to remain intact forever and accessible by anyone, which supposedly threatened the development of human society. Rather than solid snake stimulation, the S3 plan actually stood for Selection for Societal Sanity, and the entire incident on the Big Shell had been orchestrated in order to test S3's crisis management capabilities, echoing what Emma had said earlier. The mimetic information that would be passed on to future generations would therefore be decided by the Patriots, since they believe themselves to be in a stronger position to do so over humans. The Patriots considered most humans' tendencies to favor overthinking acceptance of unpleasant truths harmful to society, as it would create great amounts of junk information that would bury what was indeed true. The AI then ordered Raiden to kill Solidus, and he was forced to comply after realizing that the lives of Olga's child and Rosemary depended on his victory. Solidus told Raiden that he needed to kill him in order to determine the location of the Patriots from the nanomachines in Raiden's head. In order to provoke Raiden into fighting him, Solidus revealed it was he who had murdered his parents. Cue awesome sword fight on a building. What did you think of the Solidus boss fight?
Okay. Uh, so I think that the idea is really neat. Like I like the sword stuff because you do get to do more like sword fighting. Sort of again, the game kind of trains you. Like after you get the sword from Snake, you get to fight a couple of guys alongside Snake, and it sort of sets up how this fight's going to work. Um, However, it's like most of these games end with a fist fight of some sort, or a mano a mano fight, and of course there's a way to use the non lethal side of the sword. Um, I think it went on like a little too long for me. Like he's got like a lot of health, and there's not like a lot of different strategies you can do to fight him in this fight. You kind of poke him, run away, let him kind of do his animations and try to attack you, and then once there's an opening, you poke him again and run away. It's pretty similar to the liquid fight in that way, but at least like the liquid fight went by a lot quicker. What do you think?
I feel like a lot of my complaints are because I've been spoiled by so many games that have come out more recently. Um, like especially like Souls-like games like Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice, um, Jedi Fallen Order, that sort of those style of games, because their sword combat is so much more in depth, and you've got the dodging and the parrying, blocking, all that sort of stuff. Um, I feel like it's a really cool idea, and I feel like it would be more well suited to a game that had sword mechanics built in from the beginning. Um, like I'm sure they righted a lot of these wrongs in like Metal Gear Rising:
I
Revengeance,
was about to say that. I
for
mean, it's like
instance.
we'll
But
be getting to that eventually.
yeah, but I don't know. I feel like for a game that 99% of its runtime you're going through with a gun, to have a sword thrown in at the very end kind of feels out of place. And don't get me wrong, it's a sword fight, just one-on-one duel is cool in pretty much any setting you put it in, but it just, in light of a lot of the games that we have today, it's lacking that mechanical depth to really make it fun and engaging for, to your point, for as long as it goes on. I
Yeah.
feel like if it was, on a timer or something like that, they could get away with it a little bit more, but
Yeah, I think if you
I don't
cut
know.
Solidus's health in half, uh, the fight would feel a lot less tedious. I did fall off of the building by accident because I think I just assumed that there would be an invisible wall to stop me, but I actually ended up flipping off by accident, and which is embarrassing because there's so much room on that rooftop. It's not like when you fight Liquid at the end of Metal Gear Solid, where it's very easy to fall off because the area is so small. It's like no, you've got
Yeah.
a lot of room to play with in this boss fight.
I'll be honest, I didn't know that you could fall off the roof, so I mean that's kudos to you. I don't know that I would have admitted that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, you admitted difficulties with the vamp fight, so I was like, I might as well. Well, it's also on camera. Like my whole playthrough of this game is all recorded, so you can watch me actually do that. Because I was just like trying to dodge out of the way, and I just assumed I would stop, but Raiden just kept going.
Um, yeah. Any thoughts about like any of the reveals so far? Because we're about to get to the real
I
the
mean,
real meaty part.
it's a lot, and to be totally honest, I didn't even realize that when I was playing the game, the AI that is talking to you right before you fight Solidus was a different AI. I thought it was the same one that talks to you right before you fight Metal Gear Ray. Like I didn't realize that they were two separate entities. I had to listen to a story breakdown to like really understand that. So I mean, the end of the game really throws a lot at you. Where I was just like, um, it was just overwhelming. It's almost like all the stuff is great and really compelling, but it's almost too much.
Yeah, it's a lot all at once, and it's really hard to wrap your head around it. Because like here, somewhere around this area is when you get like the classic, oh, turn off your console, time to go outside, those sorts of
Don't
lines,
sit
and
too close to the
uh,
TV.
yeah, yeah,
There's even a part where you're like fighting the guards and you get a fission mailed and you could still see yourself like fighting in the upper hand corner, but the game is trying to tell you that you died basically, even though you're still moving
yeah.
around.
That was really. I really like whenever they do stuff like that, like going back to the Psycho Mantis fight with the little, changing the input and saying Hideo in the corner. It, stuff like that alters your perception of the game. Um, like even Batman Arkham Asylum, whenever it looks like the game crashes during the Scarecrow part. Those little moments like that, they they get a lot of appreciation from me. I like to nerd out about stuff like that.
Yeah, because like
Um,
it's just a lot of fun, and I mean it also kind of fits with what the game is trying to do, both theme and story wise as well, where you're not sure like what's real and what's not.
and it's something totally unique to this medium. Like you can't be reading a book and then suddenly it like the next page is like looks like it's burnt up and you're missing some.
I've
You
read
you
one
can't
book
do
that
this
does
stuff in
something
other
like
mediums.
that, though. It's the only book I've ever written that's done something like this. It's a book by Clive Barker, and I won't go on this diatribe for too long. Called Mr. Be Gone, and basically the book is about a demon that's trapped in the book you're reading, and he's throughout most of the book he's telling you like his backstory, but throughout chapters he'll interrupt his like telling you to to stop reading the book, to burn the book, to throw the book away, that reading is a bad idea. So that's like the only book I've ever read that's ever done anything like that.
That is actually really cool and shouldn't be surprising to me coming from Clive Barker. Um, but I have written that down just now and I will check that out. Um, because that sounds really cool to me. Um, anyway, Getting back on topic, after the sword duel, Raiden struck down Solidus, his spine almost severed. Solidus fell from the Federal Hall's roof to the steps below and crawled his way to the statue of George Washington, arm reaching out towards the figure, before finally collapsing upon its base. As Raiden stood outside the front of Federal Hall, Snake appeared and informed him that he and Otacon were going to find the Patriots using the virus disk. Since it had been programmed to censor the names of the Patriots' leaders, it would have some form of indicator to identify what those names were. Also revealing that the disk that they had supplied Raiden with earlier was actually a dummy disk to ensure that their infiltration could go as planned without risking the Sons of Liberty gaining access to the worm. Raiden insisted on coming with them, but Snake told him to stay, telling him that he still has things to do and people to catch up with. Although the mission had been a simulation, Snake comforted Raiden with the fact that everything he had felt during the mission was his and his alone. It was up to him to decide what to pass on to the future and to figure out his own purpose for himself. After Snake departed, Raiden was reunited with Rose, and the two vowed to make a life together. Some time later, Otacon and Snake successfully traced the Patriots, but discovered that all 12 of them were dead, and had been for at least 100 years. Snake deduced that the information retrieved from Arsenal Gear was false. It was only a fake lead orchestrated by the Patriots. With this, Philanthropy had lost their only lead, the future of the Patriots uncertain. And I just want to say, to the credit of Kojima and his team, this game achieves something that very few things do for me, where I left that final scene with Raiden and Snake actually feeling inspired. Like inspired to go do something with my life, I guess. Like in a way that very few pieces of media kind of move me. Um, so I mean, like Tick Tick Boom, Rent. I can probably name count on one hand the pieces of media that have actually left me feeling inspired in that way. So I'm really curious to know what you thought of the ending. And we can kind of go through if there's anything that you missed that you want to touch on in the story,
Well,
uh, anywhere along the line.
despite the confusion with the AI that apparently has been living underneath the White House for 200 years, and I'm like, how the hell does that work? Because I mean, computers obviously didn't exist back then, but it's
That
like
we know of.
that we know of. And I was like, I was always like, also as like, we'll get to my predictions for like what's going to happen next in the further games because I have some ideas. But it's like, and it's like, is the whole like ride and Snake in the streets is also very dreamlike in itself because people kind of just start appearing and around the wreckage and stuff, and walking like they're just going about their daily business, and then all of a sudden Rose is kind of just there, like there's no explanation as how she got there. I mean, I guess she could have been aboard the flying Metal Gear, but it's like, how the heck did she get off? Did Snake rescue her? There's a lot of questions. I mean, it could be that she's like, we don't know what's real to Raiden anymore, and it's like, was Rose ever real? So it's the thing is like, there's no, in the context of just this game, there's no right or wrong answer. So it's kind of hard to know like what to put your finger on. But I assume, or at least hope, that some of the other games that feature Raiden will answer these questions. But I think that the game does, the final dialogue by Snake. I'm gonna sit my fiance down to like listen to it because I found it really profound, because it's something that I have been thinking about a lot, because I don't have kids that are biologically mine, but in a way I think I agree with Snake and by extension Kojima's message that passing on genes, while important, isn't nearly as important as passing on traditions, ideas, and faith. Um, so I think that that's a really profound message, because I mean, think about it. We pass down things all the time, and we don't even realize it. I mean, even just this podcast, we're passing uh, a review of Metal Gear Solid 2 to whoever's listening to it. Or when you're at work and you train somebody new, or you tell them something they don't know. And it doesn't even have to be about work itself. It could just be a stupid fact about um, anything, whether it be food, movies, games, whatever. Uh, so it's a good note to end on, because there's a lot of dark stuff that happens during the last like 4 to 5 hours of this game, especially around Otacon's family. So I think to end on this hopeful message is actually, and I mean the last game also ended on a hopeful message as well. So and it's not an easy feat to pull off for sure.
Yeah, there's one thing that I saw a couple weeks ago now that said something to the effect of, your voice is the one thing that you have, so use it well. And I think that kind of ties into like what you were saying about passing along ideas. And when it comes down to it, we do so much in our lives, but for so many people, we'll be remembered for the one or two moments that we said or did something that really impacted them. So you know, and it's kind of like what Snake was saying. It's up to us to make the right call whenever you know, our lives intersect with other people's lives, to leave that impact that we want to have on the world with each person that we encounter.
Right, exactly.
Um, but uh, anything we missed, skipped over,
I don't think so. I mean,
anything
I
like
feel
that
like we
throughout the
covered the
story?
story pretty good. I mean, there's a lot of layers to this thing, but I really think that, I mean, even like I had to listen. Like I felt like I grabbed this most of the story of Metal Gear Solid on my first playthrough. I'm excited to play it again. Like I think there's stuff that I could definitely pick up on a second playthrough, but it wasn't like, man, there's something about this story that I'm missing. But with Metal Gear Solid 2, there's so many different things going on with all the betrayals, the uh, the different like perspectives from all the characters, and all the different stories kind of going on in the background. Like I said, I didn't even realize that there were two separate AIs. I thought it was the same thing when I was playing it. It wasn't until I was listening to a story breakdown I was like, oh shit, that was a completely different AI. I didn't even realize that. I thought it was the same. So
That's what this. It's an insanely dense game, and I would say almost to its detriment. Because like you said, the first time I played through the game, I didn't grasp it fully. Was getting there after the second playthrough, and it wasn't until I seeked out. It was like an ending explained type video for Metal Gear Solid 2 that I was really like, okay, and I put all the pieces together. So there are good things. There are positives to having such a dense and layered story, but there is also the fact that, throwing so much in the audience's face in the last, hour of gameplay. I mean, uh, we've spent, almost 3 hours talking, and I haven't even mentioned Arsenal Gears colon or whatever. you know, um, but there's just a lot to this game, and could be good for some people, could be bad for others, and I totally understand if anybody falls in either camp.
Yeah.
But given that there was, a lot of story right there, brings me to one very important question: where do you think the story's going next?
Um. Well, I know that like obviously Metal Gear Solid. Our next three games are all prequels. Well, four games actually because of Ground Zeroes. So, I don't know much about Metal Gear Solid 4 other than I know that it's a sequel to this game essentially. But I think my hope is that we're going to get answers to a lot of questions, and I think my biggest like prediction is I think we're going to get aliens. Like, I mean, does that seem so far fetched after what we got in this game? Like, because I think that's it's gonna be like aliens help made the pyramids type thing. Was like, oh, aliens help make this AI that's been living underneath the White House. So I'm wondering if that's what we're gonna get, if this we're getting this artificial intelligence that came from the stars.
I feel like that's the only aspect of sci-fi that Kojima has not touched on so far is extraterrestrials and the like. So I've not played four. I do know a fair bit about the story just from, cultural osmosis.
Oh, I
I have
didn't
a best
realize you hadn't
friend
played
who,
four. I guess I thought you'd played all of them, all the five main ones. I guess is four the only one
uh,
you haven't played.
four and Peace Walker are the
Oh,
two that
okay,
I've not played.
okay.
So my best friend, he's been obsessed with Metal Gear Solid series since forever, I guess. Um, we met when we were like 4 years old, and as long as I've known him, I remember, that being a thing that he would talk about. So I do know a lot about the story, but I've not played it, so I honestly have no idea.
Well, I guess
That-
we'll
eh,
find out.
yeah, we'll find that out together whenever we get there. Um,
But I
any
think
other predictions?
no, I don't think so. I think I think that's like I wasn't even kidding. Like I think we might get aliens in one of these games. Like I'm it might sound like a joke, and I maybe it is partially a joke, but it also wouldn't surprise me. Like I mean, we got a freaking vampire in this one. Um, so I mean, if anybody could make it work, but also make it somehow feel grounded, Kojima could be the one to do it.
I mean, Metal Gear Survive launches, Mother Base into an alternate dimension where there are zombies with, like red crystal heads. So nothing's off the table
Yeah.
in my mind. Um, I do have one little tidbit in the story left before we get to the gameplay. Um, I just called it in case you missed it. Johnny's back. So, do you remember Johnny, the guard who would not stop having uh, constant diarrhea in the first game or in the Metal Gear Solid?
Yes, I remember him.
He's back.
Are you
Uh,
serious? Where?
yeah. Okay, so I'll get into it here. Unlike the surviving genome soldiers who had participated in the rebellion, Johnny somehow managed to avoid being detained in the aftermath of the Shadow Moses incident, and eventually joined the Gerlukovich mercenaries. He participated in the takeover of the Big Shell, though he continued to suffer from stomach problems. During a bathroom break in the Shell 1 Corps, he briefly talked about his time in Alaska and how much his commanding officer, Olga Gerlukovich, reminded him of Merrill. He also mentioned that things really started to hit the skids, and up to that point, he was steady cruising on the elite course. Finally, he commented that the Russian crew was a pretty decent bunch, how much the president's escort guys annoyed him, and that he just had to hang in there. His monologue ended with him realizing that there was no toilet paper. Johnny later ran into Emma Emmerich while she was crossing the Strut L oil fence. Although he was assigned to watch out for intruders, he lowered his gun when he saw her, that she was an unarmed woman. Johnny then reflected on the danger of associating with beautiful women during a mission, referring to his past experience with Meryl at Shadow Moses. He told Emma that it would cause diarrhea right before being hit with a bout. Johnny was forced to release Emma and run off to find the bathroom, with Emma commenting, "What a weird guy."
When the hell does this happen?
I didn't encounter it. I'm wondering if it's like just an optional thing. Um, but it says
Oh,
during when you're crossing the Strut L oil fence.
well, when she's
Um,
well, she kind of goes behind the struts, right? And she's back there for a while.
I wonder if you can use the directional microphone
I
and
bet that's it.
listen. Yeah,
God, like who would think to do
yeah.
that? Who would think to be like, man, she's taking a while. I better listen in and make sure she's okay.
I mean,
Wow,
Kojima. If nothing else, Kojima rewards the curious players.
that's freaking
Um,
wild. So is this going to
but yeah,
be
so
okay? New prediction. He's gonna. There's an ancestor of his is going to appear in the next couple of games. Is that going to be? Is this going to be a new running joke? Is that what's happening?
um, I don't want to give too much away, but I'm pretty sure Johnny's grandfather is in Metal Gear Solid 3. um, but yeah, it's kind of a recurring thing with Kojima. I don't know about 5. I don't know about Peace Walker. But yeah, Johnny is a prominent figure.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I mean, speaking of prominent, I mean, this is a video game, so should we talk a little bit about gameplay?
Yeah, let's get into the gameplay. So it is a little different than Metal Gear Solid, um, namely in the acrobatics department. Um, so we can do cartwheels now. We can hang off ledges. Um,
Only when you're playing Raiden, like
what?
Snake doesn't do cartwheels.
Well, yeah. Snake doesn't do cartwheels, to be fair, but they did kind of shuffle the deck quite a bit whenever you get to play as Raiden. So, what did you think about the differences? Obviously, a little bit less stealthy to pop a full cartwheel while you're running through enemy territory, but I
Well,
guess to
I
each his
mean,
own.
he doesn't make a lot of noise when doing it, so I think the sneak suit helps. But man, talk again about a night and day difference. And this is coming from somebody who loves Metal Gear Solid's gameplay, but there is kind of the PS1 jank that's part of it, where like there were times where I'm trying to sneak and I accidentally step out of from behind a wall and reveal myself. There was barely any of that sort of thing in this game. Metal Gear Solid 2 is smooth, like shockingly
Oh yeah.
smooth. Like the gameplay and the sneaking is very satisfying. The first person to where you can shoot is clean, like cleaner than what I expected. Um, like it's surprisingly uh like it still like holds up, like it doesn't feel old.
Like I was honestly shocked that there was a lean to the first person aiming. I think if you, I forget exactly how it is, but you can lean from side to side. Uh, to pop your head out of cover whenever you're in the first person aiming,
Right.
which I was shocked to see in a game from 2001, 2002, when, I remember in the 2010s, a common complaint from a lot of like game reviewers for first person shooters are like, oh, I wish you could like, just pop your head from behind a wall and stuff like that. Kojima was doing it. all the way back in 2001.
Right.
So that is one thing that whenever I was playing through the series, seeing the jump, not just graphically, but also, the feel of, when you get your hands on the sticks, playing the game, only being 3 years apart.
Yeah,
Metal Gear Solid to Metal Gear
that's
Solid
another thing.
2.
I had to like look at that while you were talking about the development. I was like looking. I was like, how much of a gap was there? Because I was like, I thought Metal Gear Solid came out in '98 and this came out in 2001, but I was like, surely the gap is bigger than that. But no, it's 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, to 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 put in perspective the jump between um, what was it, the fifth and the sixth generation of consoles. Um, Resident Evil, the PlayStation 1 game, came out in 1996. Resident Evil Remake came out in,
I think
what
it
was
was
it,
2000.
Two, 2000, 2001. I think there was like a 5 year gap between them. And, we had just a few years ago when the Last of Us Part 1 remake came out, people complaining that there wasn't enough time in between that game and The Last of Us, which came out in 2013.
Right.
There's like a 10 plus year gap between those games, and there was not as big of a difference as there was in, games that were 5 years apart, 3 years apart in Metal Gear Solid's case. So, I mean, the just how fast technology was advancing at that time versus where we are now is just mind blowing for somebody who wasn't, didn't see it happen in real time.
Right.
I was a baby when Metal Gear Solid 2 came out. Um, so it's just astonishing to me looking back and seeing the timeline versus what I have witnessed, in my high school years and on into adulthood. Um, just the gaming landscape is not the same as it used to be
No, and
in
I
any
think
way.
that's probably inevitable. I mean, obviously these are two great games I'm about to mention, but if you compare like the graphical quality between Resident Evil 8 and 9, like yes, there's a gap, but the gap's not huge. Like it's not night and day difference. Like it's not the difference between Metal Gear Solid and Metal Gear Solid 2 difference. And it's just, I mean, if you compare any of the Resident Evil games from the past 6 to 8 years, they're all pretty close as far as graphical and gameplay quality. Like, yeah, there's differences, but the difference isn't the the gap in what it used to be way back during this time.
And I would even argue, like, whenever they introduced the RE engine, was that 7 or was that the 2 remake?
It was either 7 or the
Um,
2 remake. I'm pretty sure it was 7, but I could be wrong.
yeah. So that's a 9 year gap between that and Resident Evil 9. There's still not a huge amount of difference between how those two games look. And I mean, Resident Evil 7, I just played it a couple years ago fully for the first time because I was far too scared to play through that game when it first came out. Um, but I mean, it's incredible that it came out in 2017 and it can stand among games coming out today, and it still looks pretty much top of the line everywhere
Yeah,
you look.
yeah. I mean, we're kind of creeping into design, but I think that this game like does a lot of has like a lot of variety, and we kind of hinted at this during the story section. But it's like it's not just sneaking around trying to get around bad guys. You're also disabling bombs. There's an escort mission, and then there's also bobbing and weaving a missile through the ducts to make sure it doesn't hit the president. So this game has a lot of variety. I mean, even the swim section does break up, like, does offer something different and doesn't and although it's not great, it doesn't overstay its welcome.
And that is one thing I can certainly say for Kojima is he did not want there to be just this sameness to the entire experience. He wanted you to be able to go through the entire game and it feel fresh at the very end as much as it did whenever you first booted up the game. And that's evident looking at the final product. And I feel like, I mean, they really pulled it off. I mean, it's a varied experience all the way through, and none of it bad, in my opinion.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. What do you have a favorite weapon?
Um, honestly, this time I'm going to give it to the SOCOM pistol. 'Cause it was my old reliable. I think I went with the Nikito rocket launcher in the last game, but the SOCOM pistol carried me through basically every encounter in this game, and I feel like its uses are so plentiful that, and ammo is always available if you're attempting to sneak around. So I feel like it can be used throughout the entire game without, really feeling the need to use other weapons very often at all. Uh, Close runner up for me is the sword, just because I'm a nerd and I like cool swords.
Yeah, the sword was very cool.
What about you?
Um, I think I'm gonna have to go with the stinger because it was so much fun to use during the jet fight, and then of course, I mean the fact that I was able to um, own Vamp with it was also oddly satisfying because it's like I mean, yeah, I mean even though the fight occurred before he killed Emma, it's like in hindsight it was satisfying to kind of take him out that way. Um, but I do
Preemptive
love the fact,
revenge.
yeah, I do love the fact that you can use a trank throughout the whole game and do a no kill run. But I think I'm gonna have to go with the Stinger missile. I didn't think the Nikita missile was as good this time around. I kind of like the overhead look that you get uh, in Metal Gear Solid, where you kind of follow it from a bird's eye view. Whereas this game, it's first person view the whole time.
Yeah, it almost reminds me of like the remote control batarang in the Batman Arkham games,
Yes,
and that does not always feel the best.
yeah.
Um,
But I mean, the most important part of a Metal Gear Solid game, or Metal Gear game, I should say, is the boss fights. Which boss fight is your favorite?
well, I think I mentioned before, but I'm gonna have to go with Fat Man. Um, he left a big impression starting off with his, uh, painted nail, holding his martini glass, sipping on it, rolling up on his roller skates in full bomb disposal gear. Um, Left a big impression on me at the beginning, and it was the most fun and engaging boss fight in the game to me. Vamp was just too frustrating for me because I was using the wrong weapon apparently, and like the Ray fight and the Solidus fight, they all had their problems, and I should probably include the Harrier in the boss fights, but I don't lump it in with the others in my mind. Um, yeah, the Fat Man is definitely on top for me. Close second would be Olga's fight in the tanker section. I feel like that was a very necessary fight to teach the players, what to expect, what possibilities there were on this new technology uh, called the PlayStation 2. So I feel like it was used more as a tool from the developers' standpoint. but it did its job and it did its job well. So definitely, kudos to them for implementing it in that way versus just a giant text box that explains everything that you can do in a boss fight now, which we see way too often in games.
Yeah,
Um, so what about you? What's
it's
your favorite?
it's funny that you say the Harrier fight you wouldn't include as a boss fight, but that's actually my personal favorite. Um, because it's got Vamp and Solidus inside of it, but I just, and maybe it's because the Stinger is my favorite weapon in the game, and I just found the locking on really satisfying. But there's some strategy to it because, well, one, they're doing like runs where they're trying to bomb the crap out of you, and then Snake is also flying around providing support, so you have to be careful not to just carelessly aim the Stinger because you could hit him too. So I really liked that aspect, and of course, the back and forth between Raiden and Solidus during that part, because it's like I just love the reveal of Solidus, because I mean Solidus was teased at the end of Metal Gear Solid, and I'm glad that we got Solidus in this game and not in one of the later games. Like I'm glad we didn't have to wait, but I just thought fighting the jet was just really cool. Like I like how that whole fight was set up, and again having the having Snake kind of back you up in that fight was also neat.
Yeah, I'll have to say with Solidus, it kind of feels like whenever they were in the character design phase, Kojima was like, "Yeah, I really like Doctor Octopus.
Yeah.
I want to make him cooler. Let's give him an eye patch."
Yeah, yeah, he did. The arms on his back did remind me of Doctor Octopus, even though he's got two of them instead of four.
It doesn't matter. It's arms on the back automatically Doc Ock.
Yeah, but
um,
I'm sorry. Did you have something else to say?
uh, not. Did you have a second favorite? I'm just a little curious.
Um, I guess my runner-up would probably be the probably the Metal Gear Ray fight. I think that I mean Metal Gear is in the name of the game, right? So this one it just felt nuts, and I think it was like even though it was challenging, I don't think it was as deadly as the fight with Metal Gear Rex at the end of Metal Gear Solid. Like even though I
Yeah.
died a couple times, I don't think I died nearly as much, which is funny because I ended up fighting three or four of them instead of just one. Um, but I feel like that we finally had a Metal Gear fight that felt balanced but also challenging at the same time without being frustrating.
Yeah, I do think it's cool too because I think it was in Metal Gear 2 um, when we were going through the development that we said that Kojima had the idea for a mass-produced Metal Gear model in that game, but he couldn't make it work due to the size of the memory
Right.
that they had to work with. So it feels like one of those, uh, again, one of those ideas that have just been gestating for so long, and Kojima's just finally able to do it. So he just let loose. Um, so it was really cool to see it come to fruition, and the spectacle of, like I said, just one man versus all of these giant mechs. I mean, it's kind of hard to beat.
Yeah, and then I mean,
Um,
you mentioned the Fat Man fight too. I mean, that's also another really great one.
you have any other thoughts on the gameplay?
No, I think overall, like I said, I think the gameplay is really smooth. Like it really holds up. I think that this is, I mean, so far, the best version of this gameplay loop where you get the bird's eye view and you're sneaking around, and something that totally screwed me over. And I'm glad I just thought of it I because you mentioned the nerds at the beginning of the story section. So I think because I was trying to just absorb the story, I totally missed the part where you have to go to the nodes to download a map, and I'm like going through the game, and I'm like, man, I'm really missing the radar from Metal Gear Solid. I feel like it's very inconsistent in this one. Sometimes I have it, and sometimes I don't, and I didn't understand why. But then I figured out, crap, I have to log into the nodes to get that map. And I didn't really. When did that occur to me? I think it occurred to me like right around the time you quote unquote rescue the president. So it was like a good ways in the game. I was
Oh wow,
going
yeah.
sections without the radar, which made the game a little bit harder and added a different challenge. But I was like, man, why am I not having the radar in a lot of these sections? I'm really missing it. So it was just funny, but I could see, but I think the reason I missed it was because there was a lot. Again, there's a lot going on in this game, even at the very beginning, where you're transitioning between Snake and Raiden, and really trying to pay attention to what's going on. And the whiplash, even though I was prepared for the character change and knew it was coming, it still, in a way, threw me off. So that was another thing that made the game harder for me than probably what it needed to be.
That's funny because I was probably the exact opposite. I'm one of those players that anytime there's like like the Assassin's Creed type sync points, anything like that around a map that reveals part of the map to you, I always just ignore everything and go unlock every single one of those that I can immediately. So that was my mentality with this game as well. Go to each strut, find the node, and get it as soon as I can. So it's funny to me that that you had the opposite experience. Um, and I just thought we talked a little bit over Discord about the other modes of play, like the snake tails and
Yes,
the missions. Did you get a chance to try any of those out?
I played for a little bit this afternoon, actually, for about 20 or 30 minutes, just to get like a feel for one of the missions. And maybe it's just the mission I picked, but that one also didn't have a a, a a motion tracker either, which made the sneaking around a lot more difficult and more challenging.
That's cool. I didn't get a chance to try any of them out, unfortunately. Um, I kind of realized that they were there a bit too late to really give them the time that they deserved.
Yeah,
Um, but it is cool that you were able to at least, get your hands on some of it
yeah.
and try
So
it out. Because I know you'd mentioned liking the VR missions from Metal Gear Solid a
oh
lot.
yeah, those are great. But for these ones, it like seems like they were kind of like what if scenarios or non canon stories. So I don't know. It's like maybe further down the line, once we finish all the games, it would be interesting to go back and go through each one of the games. Sort of. I don't know if this counts as DLC, but extras, I guess, would be a good way to put it.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of content outside of the main games in all of the games, really. That's it's just optional and it's so easy to miss if you're just hopping in for the story. But there's a lot of fun to be had
Yeah,
outside of just the story.
yeah. I totally agree. Well, I think that about covers gameplay. Do we want to move into design and music?
Yeah. So going on to the design and music, I actually do have a little blurb here. So Kojima's choice of composer for Metal Gear Solid 2 was highly publicized in the lead up to the game's release. Kojima decided on Harry Gregson Williams, a Hollywood film composer from Hans Zimmer's studio, after watching The Replacement Killers with sound director Kazuki Mura- Muraoka. That's the name I had such a hard time with earlier. Um, a mixed CD containing 18 tracks of Gregson Williams' work was sent to his office. Flattered by the research put into creating the CD, as some of the tracks were unreleased and some tracks he'd worked on for some films were undocumented, he joined the project soon after. In order to bypass the language barrier and allow the score to be developed before the cutscenes were finalized, Gregson Williams was sent short phrases or descriptions of the intended action. The resulting theme then shaped the action sequences in return. Gregson Williams also arranged and reorchestrated the original Metal Gear Solid main theme for use in the game's opening title sequence. Norihiko Hibino, who composed the music for Metal Gear Ghost Babel, was responsible for all of the in-game music. He also worked on the majority of the game's cutscenes, reorchestrating Gregson Williams' main theme remix for use in several sequences. As with Metal Gear Solid, the cutscene music includes orchestral and choir pieces, while the in-game soundtrack is scored with ambient electronic music. However, the score as a whole incorporates a more electronic elements than its predecessor in order to reflect the plot's thematic thrust of a machine-dominated society. Um, so I don't know how much of that really came through in your experience of actually playing the game, but I did notice, especially in like the opening, or not exactly the opening, but like
Before like
the title screen.
the main menu screen.
Yeah, you kind of get like the electronic pulses and stuff, which just kind of scratches an itch in my brain for whatever reason. I just love that sound, and if I tried to recreate it right now, I would just embarrass myself. But you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But what did you think of the design, the music throughout the game?
Well, I mean, I mean we've said it again. I mean, the graphical jump is crazy. I was blown away by the fact that like when you're out in the rain like bounces off your character, and the way they described how they did that in the documentary was really interesting. That the rain droplets were made instead of, because today it would have been the raindrops would have been a different program reacting to your character, but instead it's part of your character, if that makes sense. But the way that they implemented that in the gameplay, like it was so like seamless, and the fact that like when you go inside and water is falling off you until you get dry was also something that I was just like, oh, that's really cool for this time. So I think that obviously, I mean, the best looking games from the PlayStation 2 were probably Final Fantasy 10 and 12, but Metal Gear Solid 2 is and 3, I would assume, are also really up there as far as their presentation. The only thing that I guess seemed kind of off is sometimes the lip syncing wasn't always right with the words. And I don't know if that's a Master Collection thing or if that was also an issue with the original PS2. It wasn't that bad. It wasn't like as bad as like a dub for like a Godzilla movie, but sometimes the words didn't always match up with the lips of the character movements. But I mean, it is a game from 2001, so there's only so much you could expect. But other than that, I mean, the presentation is top notch. I mean, the soundtrack sounds like a 90s action movie. It's comparable to anything done by Michael Bay or Roland Emmerich, oddly enough. And I think that's probably what Kojima and the team was going for.
Oh, absolutely. And it's interesting that you mentioned the lip syncing, um, because I know in a lot of games, for the different localizations, they'll have, like obviously this was created in Japanese, so they had the Japanese voice actors record the lines and then sync the lips up in the cinematics to the Japanese uh, voice lines, and then it'll be like if it's done today, say it'll be recorded in English, and then they'll have to go in, reanimate the mouths to sync up with the English voice lines, and the same for every language that's being translated into. So I'm not sure if the budget, time, any of that was there for this, as Kojima mentions in the first entry in the making of diary, only 39 people worked on Metal Gear Solid, the first game.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what size team he had. I'm sure probably south of 100. Um, I'm not sure it was much more than the 39 he had for the first Metal Gear Solid game. Um, so, they may not have had the resources to go through and reanimate every single cinematic for every single voice line in every single language. Um, so that is interesting that you picked that out though, because I don't know if I'm just numb to it at this point or what, but I
Yeah.
I don't really pick up on that uh kind of the kind of minutia of the those details.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think that it's not even really like it's just something I noticed. It's not necessarily even really a complaint because it's probably, I mean, obviously, even though the PS2 was a technical marvel, there were still limitations. And to sort of bring it back to my Final Fantasy comparison, Final Fantasy X. Have you played Final Fantasy X?
uh, I started it, but I never got out of that opening area. I think I've started it about 3 times.
Okay,
Um,
so that was the first Final Fantasy with voice acting, and the dub for that can be awkward at times too. But what because they had to they went through extra trouble to sort of link it up with the lip movement. So there's a lot of dialogue that is like almost sounds like it's on fast forward. Like there's a part where Titus is like, "I hasten," like he says it that fast. So there's nothing like that in this game. I think that the voice acting is really good, and what they did with the lip syncing was probably the was better than what Square decided to do with Final Fantasy X, where it's like, well, we'll just speed up the dialogue so it looks like it matches with some of the, and it doesn't happen a lot, but it happens enough to bring up. And then, but they totally fixed that with Final Fantasy 12. Like Final Fantasy 12 has some of the best voice acting probably from that era, and the way they sync that up with the characters it was really great. So
Now I do have a question. I'm not sure if you would have the insight to this or not, but is that the reason behind, the forever memed awkward Titus laugh?
no, there's a story reason for that, and people. I mean, it is silly, but it's silly on purpose. I mean, I won't go in. The reason that he's laughing like that is to sort of it's during a serious part of the game, and he's kind of trying to lighten the mood. That's all I'll say.
Oh, okay.
Like it's not
Okay.
the laugh is bad on purpose. So it's not just bad because the voice actor was bad. In fact, I think James Arnold Taylor is a great voice actor.
Oh, he's one of my favorites. He's phenomenal. So it's kind of like you said you played a bit of Kingdom Hearts 1. It's kind of like when after that first boss fight with Donald and Goofy, they're giving Sora the talk and he's getting down in the dumps and they're like, "Hey, this ship only runs on happy faces," and he's Sora's like this, and he does the absolute worst smile, like cheese face ever.
Yeah, yes, I did see
Kind of
that
similar to
part.
that scenario.
Yeah, but yeah, I think the design for Metal Gear Solid is great. Like I was really I was blown away by like the difference between and again, it's like the camera is very cinematic, like it feels like a movie. That was another thing that blew me away with the PS1 Metal Gear Solid was how cinematic it was, and again, this game takes that even further. And there's not a bad actor at all in this game. Like they're all terrific.
Oh yeah, and especially coming off the heels of the first Metal Gear Solid, it feels like, every few steps you get a new cutscene, and it's like the most epic, show of cinematography in video games, up to that point in history each time. So that is one thing that consistently surprises me when playing through the Metal Gear Solid games, especially the first time in, was that, looking at these games and looking at, their contemporaries and seeing just how far ahead of the curve they really were.
Yeah,
Um, because like by the time you get into um, like Metal Gear Solid 5, for instance, they've got cutscenes, granted 2014 game, but they've got cutscenes similar to what you would see in games today. But really, that DNA can be traced all the way back to the original. And it's just that consistent vision that Kojima's had that he just, keeps going at and keeps getting better each game. Um, but did you have any other thoughts on design, music before we go into the overall
no,
thoughts on the whole
no.
package?
I think I'm ready to put the final stamp on this game.
All right, so Metal Gear Solid 2, where are we placing this in the pantheon of Metal Gear?
That we've played so far.
Yeah, so far, yeah.
Well, do you want to go first, or should I go first?
I think I've said it a few times. Coming into this series, Metal Gear Solid 2 was my favorite. And it so far remains to be my favorite Metal Gear Solid game. Um, so right now I'm looking at, you know, they're ranked in the order that we've played them. Metal Gear Solid 2's on top, then Metal Gear Solid, Metal Gear 2, and then Metal Gear at the very bottom. What about you?
So you're placing Metal Gear 2 as the second to last.
Metal Gear Solid 2 is top,
Right.
and then I'm going in descending
Uh
order in
huh.
the order that we played them.
Say it again, because I think I misunderstood.
Yeah, so Metal Gear Solid 2,
Uh huh.
then Metal Gear Solid, and then Metal Gear 2, then Metal Gear at the very bottom.
Okay. Well, so I think my rankings. Uh, so my least favorite is Metal Gear 2. Uh, I had a lot of the same issues that I had with Metal Gear, but the game was longer. So,
Oh, yes. We agreed on the ranking of Metal Gear and Metal Gear 2.
okay.
Yes.
I mean, you're
So
allowed to, if you're you're
I'm sorry.
full disclosure, if you ever change your mind, that's I'm fine with that. That's what I was confused. 'Cause I was like, I have our rankings. I was like, is he changing his mind? That's why I was
No,
confused.
I didn't have it written down in front of me.
Um,
So no, I'm with you.
yeah. So Metal Gear 2, again, the story is actually pretty good for what it is, but it's the gameplay is difficult, to put it nicely, and obnoxious at times, and has again the same problems as Metal Gear, but it's almost twice as long. So my third spot above that, I'd put Metal Gear. My favorite thing about that game is the soundtrack. I think the soundtrack is actually the soundtrack in all four of these games are good. But I think that this one in particular, I just have like a soft spot for NES type music. And then going in my
Ba-dum.
yeah, exactly. And then it really cracked me up once it showed up in the VR missions. And then in my number two spot, is going to be Metal Gear Solid 2 and number 1 Metal Gear Solid. And here's why. So, full disclosure, because some people, like I've seen this with other YouTube channels where like people talk about games they really love, but the fact that one gets ranked below, it's like, oh, that they mistake that as somehow you hated the game. I don't hate this game at all. I think it's incredible. I think it's actually when I think of video game sequels now, I think Halo 2 and Gears of War 2 being some of the best sequels ever as far as video games go. And I think Metal Gear
Yeah.
Solid 2 is right there. Like this game does a really good job of building upon what Metal Gear Solid set up, both in its story. And the thing is, Kojima and the team could have just made Metal Gear Solid again. And in a lot of ways, they kind of did, but it was part of the theme and the story. Like they did a really clever way instead of being like, as much as I love Terminator 2, it is kind of just Terminator again. And a lot of
Yeah.
those movies are like that. But I think Metal Gear Solid 2 does that in a really clever way. I think what puts Metal Gear Solid above Metal Gear Solid 2 for me is I think Metal Gear Solid's boss fights are more frequent. I think the bosses are more iconic. I think the story is also easier to grasp. I think Metal Gear Solid 2's one of its problems, especially near the end, is that there's a lot to grasp onto, and all the ideas are really interesting. But it almost, again, I think we both have mentioned this, tries to do much at times, especially during the last quarter of the game. I think maybe the AI living underneath the White House plotline could have been dropped, and that would have helped. But maybe they're going to pay that off in a later game. So who knows? So I think for me, Metal Gear Solid is my number one, with Metal Gear Solid 2 being my number two, with the caveat being these are both incredible games. But I think the boss fights in Metal Gear Solid are better and more iconic. And I think the story is also better. But I mean, as far as like gameplay, music, and obviously graphics, well, I mean, graphics is kind of a given as far as being better. But the gameplay is just like, my hope is that for the Twin Snakes game, once we get to the remake section of our podcast, is that if Twin Snakes has gameplay on par with Metal Gear Solid 2, then I'm very much looking forward to that.
Oh, if it does, I think that would edge Metal Gear Solid 1 above Metal Gear Solid 2 in my ranking personally, because I do know that they added in the first person aiming for the Twin Snakes
Right.
remake.
I mean, that would make sense
Um,
because the GameCube is more powerful than the PS2, so it makes sense that they would be able to do maybe a little bit more with this remake.
uh, but so I'll agree with you with the bosses. Um, but and even the story I said earlier, the story is jam packed. It's convoluted. It's peeling layers off on into the post credits scene, and I don't blame anybody for loving it, hating it, indifferent, whatever. I understand any way you land with that, but I happen to be a sucker for convoluted storylines. Anything that I have to Google what the hell just happened after I experienced it's got its hooks in me. Especially if it makes me want to go Google it instead of just brushing it off and being like, oh, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, and that gameplay, smooth as butter. And ultimately, for 90% of the experience, the gameplay, the gunplay is how we are interfacing with it. So that's the reason that I put Metal Gear Solid 2 above Metal Gear Solid 1 in my own personal rankings.
Yeah. And yeah, I think and again with both these games, I'm excited to play them again. It's like once I finished it, I was like, man, I can't wait to play this again, and hopefully sooner rather than later. And I felt the same way with Metal Gear Solid. But yeah, I think that our rankings are finally looking a little bit different. But no, I thought really hard about it to make sure that I was really sure. But yeah, I think that this is a great sequel.
Well, we do have a question
We do.
that we've got to answer before we leave here. Um, and don't forget that you, listener at home, can join our Discord today and ask questions or leave your own reviews for any of the future games that we cover to be read on the show. So today's question is from Uncle Slam on our Discord, who says, I was thinking about it recently, and was wondering what you think would change if you played a Solid Snake throughout the game instead of Raiden. Do you feel like the characters would have adapted differently? Do you think the story would have played out in a different way? Um, so, right off the rip, Solid Snake is a hardened war hero. War hero. He's been through what, three Black Ops missions at this point.
Yep.
Um, before the events of Metal Gear Solid 2. So I feel like he's definitely far more skeptical of everything coming
Yeah.
into this. So I feel like he would be a lot harder to dupe than Raiden was with the AIs. I feel like the instant Campbell started acting weird, Snake would have been like, "All right, sums up. Don't know what yet, but I'm gonna figure it out." Um, so it definitely would have we would have been looking at a far different game here. Probably one where Snake was the one uncovering the layers of the conspiracy himself, rather than it being relayed to him by other characters like it was for Raiden. Um, but I would be interested to see that actually as more of a you know spy detective type versus just a stealth action. So what do you think, Alex?
So I think that the game would be completely different. This is clearly Raiden's story through and through. I mean, obviously Snake is an important character in the story, but this is about Raiden's hero's journey, and he's completely different from Snake. And you could even argue that Raiden has more experience than Snake because Raiden has been trained as a soldier since he was like 10, and Snake probably started when he was like 18 or 21 or something like that. So it's like some of the stuff that Raiden has been through is arguably like a lot more terrible than what Snake had to go through. Not to like downplay Snake's struggles, but kids being put into war situations is some of the most terrible things that you could imagine. But so I don't think that the story would work as well. Like you'd have to completely change it. Like I think you could do. I think the story would not be nearly as good if because it'd basically just be Metal Gear Solid, but again, but it wouldn't be for the meta reason or for the reason of training this new character or having this new character go through his journey. However,
I mean, how many times can we pull Snake out of retirement? I mean,
exactly. Like my original prediction for this game was that I thought that maybe him and Meryl would be at a cabin and there would be a giant shootout and Meryl would get hurt and that's what brings Snake out of retirement. And we don't know what's going on with Meryl at all during this game. So that's another thing I want to know about. Like I'm glad that they didn't ever say, "Oh, Meryl was killed." Like I really like the happy ending that her and Snake have at the end of Metal Gear Solid. So I'm curious to see like what she's up to. I mean, I can't imagine that she's not involved with her, with Snake and Otacon's organization in some way. So, but I think that if so, clearly, I think the interest in more Metal Gear remakes is high with the success of Metal Gear Delta. So, I imagine if they ever remake this game, what I would like to see is, don't change the core game, but what you could do is add a DLC that is sort of similar to Separate Ways for Resident Evil 4, where you play, the sections that Snake was off screen for. So you play his part in dismantling the bombs, and then you play his boss fight with Fortune and some of the other stuff. So you finally get that boss fight with Fortune. Like, I think that would be a really cool way to do it. You play through the main game, and then you play this little extra 4 to 5 hour DLC featuring Snake as the main character. What do you think about that?
I mean, take my $15. I'll play that.
Yeah, because I think, you kind of have your cake and eat it too. Like, you keep Metal Gear Solid 2's cutscenes, gameplay, and story the same, but it's like you have this little extra thing that you play afterwards.
Plus, that will satiate the people who are still angry you don't play as Solid Snake 25 years later.
Right.
So there you go.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, you mentioned something about Meryl. I thought that there was some codec conversation between Otacon and Snake about how the relationship just kind of fizzled out between him and Meryl. I don't remember that for sure, but I did like a cursory Google search, and in one of the Snake Tales where you play as Solid Snake, it's mentioned that Meryl says that Snake just disappeared.
Yeah, that was the one I
Granted,
played through. Well, it's actually Meryl that
yeah,
disappears. Maybe it happens in one of the other ones, but as far as I understand, they're not quote unquote canon. I mean, we'll see what happens with Meryl
yeah.
in one of the sequels.
I don't think they are, but yeah, it kind of seems like they just went their separate ways. He started philanthropy, and she's gone to just do whatever she does
Yeah,
in the future.
but I hope to see
But
her
it,
again because I really enjoyed her character in Metal Gear Solid.
yeah, honestly, like I, f- I feel like the female cast in Metal Gear Solid so far has been a lot stronger than I ever expected coming into it, especially knowing Kojima's reputation as a womanizer
Right.
and stuff like that. Um, but like some of the strongest characters that come out of these games, like Naomi Hunter, Mei Ling, Meryl, EE. I mean, they're some of the um, strongest characters, both in the story sense and in just like their personal selves. Like having the fortitude, like Naomi Hunter infiltrating the U.S. government to get revenge on her brother's killer, um, or who she saw as her brother's killer. It's just very very interesting when you sit back and look at it, knowing his reputation and seeing
Yeah.
the women that he writes.
Yeah. I feel like maybe. I mean, again, I've not played Metal Gear Solid 5, but I've seen screenshots of Quiet. Like, I don't know anything about her. I just know what she looks like, and I think that's kind of where people started going like, "This is a little much," and you know, Kojima's had sexy characters before, both in his male and female characters. Full disclosure: the opening screen of Metal Gear Solid in the Metal Gear Solid 2 in the Master Collection, where it's Snake and Raiden. I didn't realize that was Raiden when I first saw it. It just looked like a woman, and I said, I was like, I wonder who that hot chick is. and then as I
Yeah,
slowly started
I
to
mean,
realize, as I was playing the game, I was like, that actually kind of might be right. And
Yeah, yeah. He does look very feminine.
well, it's like he's
Um,
kind of turned to the side, and his arm is over where his pardon my French boobs would be. So it's like I was like, oh, so I think that's actually right. I don't think that's a woman.
yeah. Um, and as far as Quiet goes, there are some pretty damning scenes when it comes to that character as well. But at the same time, there are some very interesting story implications for why she is the way she is. But like, I forget how it goes, but
Well,
I'm
we'll
pretty
talk about
sure.
it
I'm pretty
once the
sure.
episode comes up for sure.
Yeah, he comes up with like some really slick, quick reason for why she never wears any clothes. Um, as like a story reason important to her character, and she
Uh
cannot
huh.
wear clothes. So that's you never know what you get with Kojima, I guess.
Yeah. But yep, as Isaac mentioned, we do have a Discord. We'd love to continue to build the community. That's the best place to get a hold of us. But we also have there's a YouTube channel for the show, a Facebook page, and obviously I stream the games on Twitch. So if you're wanting to post questions or interact with us, Discord's the best place to do it. But if you post a question on YouTube, I'll see it and hopefully save it for the show. But yeah, I think that wow, this episode this one's been a chunker for sure.
Yeah, and there's only more story from here, so who knows where we'll end up at the end.
But yeah, we'll be reviewing Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater next. So look out for this. That'll be next month is May, so that'll be near the end of May, and so look forward to that.
Yep. Until next time, I'm Isaac.
And I'm Alex, signing off.
Hope you have a great day.